I got something. I said this in a video somewhere, but I stuck with it. I battled it out on eBay, and I got a physical sealed copy of Concord, baby.
No
right
way!
On my desk.
Wow,
Yeah.
the legends are true.
Yeah, this is like an art. This is an important thing. I also have
Holy shit.
what was that Wii U game that they stopped manufacturing like right away? It was like the Devil's Third, Devil's Cartel. No, that's
Devil's Third sounds familiar. Actually,
Yeah, what was Devil's Third?
Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, was that it?
Is that going to be a sex thing?
No, it's definitely
not.
Devil's Third. It's got the guy's face on it with the sunglasses. He looks like Shadow. He looks like Shadow Man, but he's not. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, this was a
Valhalla
notorious
Game
other one that they
Studios.
made for a second and then they stopped. So I'm the king of swooping up things that no longer exist. And Concord may come back.
So wait,
we don't know. But
tell me, how much did you pay for it?
I
Tell
will
me,
not do that.
No, you have to
Jake.
tell us. No, absolutely not. There is no way you are not
I don't want
telling the
people to think
audience how
less
much
of
you
me.
pay.
Like I don't want people
That's it's
like,
too late for that
this
now.
YouTuber with his frivolous
Is
spending
it
of money.
higher or lower? $200.
Oh, lower. What do you think?
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine. I think at this point you're okay. You're in the ballpark if you're not a dickhead. Okay, right?
120.
Okay, that's okay.
It was a hard fought battle on eBay. Like it was like we were bidding back and forth. My phone was blowing up. It was a thrill. I was like the Matthew McConaughey cigarette gif looking at my phone.
The phone. For a kitsch collector's item, I think it's a good price point.
Yeah.
I do think you should frame it, though. I think it deserves that kind of treatment, just as like a really special thing.
On the gallery wall back
You should
here.
put it.
Absolutely.
You should
Put it
genuinely
in a Victorian
frame
frame. Like nice
Totally.
a Baroque.
Totally.
Like
I respect it. I would actually love to get my hands on a physical copy as well, but I have no idea where to begin.
I could sign I could autograph this one and send it to you if you'd
Thanks,
like.
man. I'd love that. I'd love that for sure. For
You have
sure.
to pay for shipping.
What a sad little chapter. It's very much a bummer.
Yeah.
So, do you guys think it'll come back?
Nope.
Now that we've had like a week or two to think about this, are you like, actually now I think they'll no, nothing like that.
No.
It's still just it's dunzo.
I 100%
like,
at
I take no
Astrobot
pleasure
just
in
to see if they popped up. If a Concord man popped up.
Do you reckon that like some developer was just like crunching in the late hours of launch, like 2 days before launch, trying to pull out the Concord like shout out? You know what I mean?
And then
Like,
they just replaced it with a normal bot.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No. It's a sad chapter, but it's another episode of the podcast, boys. This isn't going to be a sad chapter. It's going to be a fun week. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
How
it's a
was that
busy
for a
one.
segue?
Oh, so good, Luce. Still got it.
Oh, I'm a
Still got
professional,
it.
baby. Bunch of us have played Dragon Age: The Veilguard, so we have brought in Mr. Matty Plays and Austin to talk about that. We have an interview with the team behind Ara History Untold, and of course, we'll be chatting about things like the PS5 Pro, what we've been playing. I'm not bigging up my show and tell, but like I'm really excited to talk about my show and tell.
Okay.
Okay, radio. Sure.
Because it scratches.
Is it like you found like a Trent Reznor fucking sweatband that you bought on eBay for like $8,000 or some shit? Is that what it is?
No. And then I had a friend ship it to me from a different country.
Yeah,
That's the only way
right.
that I can get Nine Inch
Correct.
Nails merch.
Correct.
No, I wish though.
Oh, that does
sure.
remind me. I didn't, because I hosted last week and I'm so bad at hosting.
No, you're
I
not.
forgot to
You're
mention
great.
for the people listening at home that we did re-upload the live show that we did in
Yes.
Germany at Gamescom. So if you did miss that, it's a good time. It's really fun.
It is.
It's weird to see us all on stage talking and laughing together and being awkward. So go check it out.
Yeah, the reason we had to re-upload it because the audio was inexplicably screwed.
But
So-
just on some
but
devices.
on certain
it was
devices,
It was an
which was
audio
so weird,
thing. It
'cause
was like an
we-
audio file thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like Stuart edited that and it was fine in his headphones, and I listened to it on my phone as like a proof, and I'm like, it sounds fine. But then if you listen to it with certain earbuds or whatever, the frequencies fuck up or some shit, so you just couldn't hear it. It's so I've never encountered anything like this in my whole time. Like editing.
Shout out
videos
to
and
the
playing
audio
stuff.
tech people in the comments, like the users.
Oh,
like there
yeah.
were some people who were like, I
Yeah.
know what that is. It's because of this, and that's why you're getting that. So all the editor has to
Totally.
do is that and that. And I'm like,
So-
wow, man. I was like,
Yeah.
what, huh? Like,
Totally. Very annoying. Anyway, it's back up. It was a good show. We had a
Yeah.
good time. So yeah, do check it out. We'd like to do some more live stuff in the future.
Yes.
Maybe do a PAX one day. It'd be fun doing
Hey.
something on the US shores.
Yeah,
I would love
Firefest
that.
is coming back. There's Firefest 2. We could do that.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wanted to give a shout out too, and I took a picture of it, so I would remember to talk about it. The user Patrice Coffee.
Oh, dude.
Patrice
the
gave us
coffee.
all some coffee beans, and I've been really enjoying that the last few days.
Me
with
too.
Some great coffee.
Strong flavor, but I'm into it. I like
That shit was gone in a week. Like, not a matter of days. Thank you very much for giving us that. That was great.
It was very nice. Thank you.
But speaking of users, we're actually gonna switch things around a little bit and actually kick off with a user question because it is one that is very timely. Because we obviously the PS5 Pro got announced. And this is a user question from our Substack, which is friendspersecond.substack.com from Pixel Chronicus, I think.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. Thank you for your question. They say, with the PS5 Pro just being announced, what do you think the PS6 will bring to the table in a few years? And also, Sony literally commented on the PS6 today, which is weird. I am concerned that the cost will again be huge and that the real-life improvements will be marginal. Do you foresee a future where gaming consoles will stop releasing every few years, or do you have a more optimistic view?
Oh my god, thinking about that PS6 just makes me like...
How mu-
just no. My brain just thinks about that and goes, no, I don't want to engage that concept.
Yeah.
Do not make
How
me
much
think about that.
Does the PS5 Pro cost in Australia, Ralph?
Oh, so
$1,200 dues.
Fucking hell.
Now listen, just to be clear, like how much that is. It's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, you guys
okay?
are really getting
That's-
boned. Yeah.
It's hard when you see a dollar value and you're like, oh, is that like it's so much money that I have friends of mine who were waiting to buy a PS5 because they're like, oh, I'll get the Pro. And they're like, I know it's going to be more expensive, but like, it's okay, I'll do that. And they look at the $1,200 price tag and they're like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, it's that level of absolutely not. Just completely remove that idea from their heads. And also, no disk drive. And that has an upfront cost if you want to buy that disk drive, but it also has very long tail impacts on cost, given that the cost of disc games in Australia, it's probably the same in America. Buying a game on shelf here is roughly 30 to 40% cheaper than buying in digital storefronts. Is it the same in America?
It depends.
Not usually, no.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, in some circumstances, you can maybe get lucky with a sale at
If
Target
you're
or
thrifty,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because we have like this company with this business, JB Hi-Fi. It's like your Best Buy or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so like a new game is like $110 if you buy it from the digital storefronts. But if you buy it from JB Hi-Fi, it's almost always $80 at launch. Almost always, right? It's just cheaper to buy games on disc here, and then like other retailers will price match that, and obviously there's the aftermarket thing with trade-ins and shit. So it's so much cheaper to own discs, like to buy discs, than it is to rely on digital storefronts, which of course is insane given that there's all the cost of like printing a disc and sending it out and all that point of sale shit and whatever. Anyway, that's just how the market works. So yeah, the cost is crazy. It really is crazy for people who are thinking about making that investment. Obviously, it's not crazy compared to like an RTX 4090 GPU. Of course, it's not crazy compared to buying a fucking McLaren car, right? But in the overall console ecosystem and what we've come to expect for prices and technology and upgrades and what we get and what we don't, it's a really, really big price point that's kind of like got a lot of sticker shock on it. You know what I mean?
Whoa, it's
So, actually, question. Would you guys be interested in buying a PS5 Pro?
Nope. No.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Tell me. Tell me why.
So only
Tell me
because
why.
and people like okay, so I am a degenerate. I
yes, we know. We know.
always
And we love you
pursued
for it.
the latest and greatest. I'm a stuffed goblin. I like stuff.
You just bought
I always,
Concord, a dead game for $120.
Yes,
You bought
exactly.
a coaster.
I
That's right.
always just kind of pursued the newest stuff to the detriment of like my wallet, my credit card. I've always traded up for the next console, scrimped and saved, dumped all my money into it like recklessly. So like it's my job now, but I would totally be in either way because I'm like, oh, I have a
cop.
PS5. I use a PS5. but I can buy something that lets me play it the best possible way. And even if it's only a little bit better, I will do. I don't think it's good. I don't like the PS5 Pro. Like, I don't agree with it. But this is who I am. I am not excited about the event. Like, the way it was put on, I was just like, this is not very exciting. It's also stuff that is very hard to showcase in a YouTube video. Those side by sides, like, you can see the frame rate is a little better, but like, it doesn't really, it's not really a good, but essentially, if I can sell my PS5 on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or whatever, and get a couple hundred, and then trade up to this, and
that's actually one thing that my friend said to me as well. A different friend, he's like, look, I can sell my PS5, and I view this cost I don't view it as a $1,200 cost. I view it as like a $600 cost.
We call that girl math on TikTok, right? That's what that is.
Is that what that is?
That is girl math, I'm afraid. Yeah.
And so he is actually willing to get it because he sort of views it that way, and but he also uses his PS5 as like his primary machine, even though he has a PC, all that sort of stuff, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like, I just feel. And I think back to, like, because I bought the PS4 Pro back in the day, and I had no problem buying that.
That was a little more exciting.
Well, because it was only $50 more, right?
Was it 50?
In the UK, I think it was 50,
more.
50 quid more.
I think it was more. I think it was like 100. But like, it felt in that realm where it's like, okay, you're charging me something more, but I can see why, and I feel like it's in the general space of still being a reasonable
Plus, that
price
generation
point.
had a long gap, man. That was like, games were getting real tired at the end there. It needed something.
Games.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. Like, it's so hard to be like, even what they were showcasing there. Like, what are you seeing? Like, Ratchet and Clank. Wow, play that so it looks better. Last of Us. It's like, I get they had to show first party Sony stuff, but if they could show other things, that were more interesting. And I will tell you this. I will say this to you. Okay, I played Monster Hunter Wilds at Gamescom. Yes. So I saw a theater presentation at Summer Games Fest, and Monster Hunter Wilds looked incredible. Like, holy shit. And I'm pretty sure that was running on PC. As I recall, it was. I can't 100% confirm that, but I looked at that live demo and I was like, fuck, man, this looks amazing, right? Then I played it at Gamescom, where I was playing on a PS5 dev kit, and I was like, oh, this does not look great, because the dynamic resolution scaling was kicking in so hard that the game was looking super grainy and just not good. Like, I was really thinking to myself, man, that's a big downgrade. I really want to play this game on PC. Now, if the PS5 can deliver a significant uplift in performance if PS5 Pro can deliver a significant uplift in performance, I can see that being a very compelling case for a lot of people, because Monster Hunter Wilds, pretty great game. A lot of people really love it. Like, Japan is all about it. I can see that, like, really moving the needle for a lot of people in itself. But my point is a broader one, which is really about, like, I was feeling like that game was at the limits of what the PS5 could do. And if the PS5 Pro can take things to a new level, great. But I don't know. Like, the only thing that really jumps out at me is the AI upscaling stuff, which has a very high ceiling in terms of what it can produce. That can actually do some big things. You see it on PC all the time. But even Digital Foundry themselves are very unsure of just how much net benefit the PS5 Pro is going to provide. It's kind of a very wait and see situation. So yeah,
I think I was prepared. So I think it's really expensive, and I think that I knew I knew it was going to cost more. Like, the PlayStation 5 base is expensive. It hasn't dropped in price, but I think it's the other stuff that really makes people and myself a little more like angry about it. Like, the piss take of the disk drive and the vertical stand. That's where it's like, all right, this is getting insane, especially if you're a console gamer only and you're not accustomed to like exorbitant PC prices and memory prices going up and down and stuff like that.
I do agree. Like, a pro device, it's the pro device, it's the best that they offer, and for that to not include the disk drive as standard is a real statement. I mean, the idea that any, like, next gen consoles of course will not have a disk drive as standard. Like you'll be lucky if you can buy one separately next generation. Do you know what I mean?
Cloud.
Like it's getting to that level where they're just so, I it's not a good trend, of course, but that's definitely where it's headed.
So the question from the user was about the PS6. I mean, we at least now we know what it's going to have in it. It's going to have an AMD chip. Is anybody surprised by that news or no?
That's what they've been for like the last 3 consoles.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Rip Intel though. That's the more interesting story.
Rough,
but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, damn, dude.
I mean, look, I think I think it's always exciting to get new graphical capabilities. Sure, right? But I think in the past, we'd really gotten to a point where we'd felt like we'd wrung out the value of of the last generation of hardware, and we're like, okay, we really need this upgrade, and maybe I saw a bit of that with Monster Hunter Wilds. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was just an optimization issue. I don't know, but on the whole, it doesn't really feel like we're approaching the end of what this generation can produce. There just hasn't been enough games that really push graphical boundaries that make us confident that we need an upgrade. Like the Switch, for example. We're like, Jesus Christ, will you upgrade this thing already?
Yeah.
Like, it's clear. We need it. We want it so badly.
The Switch is like the Harrison Ford of consoles. Like, just let the man retire. Let that console rest.
Correct. And I think as well, we experience this with our GPUs, where like you hold on to a GPU for a number of generations, and then you're like, okay, the 1070 was a great card, but now it's time to put it out to stud. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With the idea of imagining a PS6, I don't know, like it's not the kind of thing that I could get super excited about.
What's the gimmick? What's the gimmick gonna be, PlayStation? What's the gimmick?
I hope there's a gimmick. I don't know.
Like, because that's the thing. Because from my point of view, I'm happy to be proven wrong on this. The concept of a next Xbox, the concept of a PlayStation 6 is so uninteresting to me because it needs something to make me want to get it, because anything else I could play on that, I can play on my PC. Like, I have become such a PC person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm, kicking myself kind of for not doing it earlier. But now, especially, we're in this world where Xbox, especially day and date, most of the time on PC. PlayStation, you'll maybe get it in a year or so. Yeah.
Well, I also feel like, too, especially if this window between consoles or mid consoles and everything is shortening, there is less of that big gap for it to feel like a big exciting thing. It has some cool concept. It's like I could see it going the same way as phones now at this point, where we just got the Apple announcement and I couldn't tell you a single thing that was new about the new phone other than AI.
It's got a new button.
It's got a new button. Okay, that's pretty good.
It's got a new button.
It's the same thing with like the Pixel, like the Pixel phone. Like I have the new one, and it's the same as the one before it. Like they're running out of. If anything, we're regressing. This phone is actually thicker and heavier than my last phone. Like it's like we're almost going. So I just think like we're kind of seeing like a squeezing of like how big advancements feel. I think individual componentry, it's still exciting when Nvidia announces a new card or they come up with some new interesting little breakthrough. There's something there, but that's a component. We're here, it's with devices. They take years to conceptualize and package and put out. I don't know. It's getting a little less sexy.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think as well, like the gaming market is also maturing to the point where like graphics are just so much less important today than they were before. It's nice, don't get me wrong. It's nice when we see nice, but like, you remember the old meme, like it's all about the graphics. Like it's not all about the graphics. It hasn't been about that for a long time, where like now the biggest and most successful games that we see aren't necessarily the ones that look the prettiest. I mean, like look at Power World, for example, and the way that absolutely exploded. And like Balatro is like one of the best games of the year, and obviously Tears of the Kingdom last year ran on like a pocket calculator and all that sort of shit, right? So it's like that stuff. I feel like the market is it's nice to be dazzled by great graphics, and I just reviewed Space Marine 2, and it is really great when a game looks that fucking good. Don't get me wrong. But on the whole, I think it's just far less central to the way that games are marketed and talked about these days. Like, you might say to I think back in the day we used to say to our friends like, "Oh, dude, you got to see the graphics. You got to play this game for the graphics."
Yeah.
Now we would never say that. We'd be like, "Well, what does this game play like?" It's like, is it good or not?
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
That's the thing. I think as I've gotten older, I definitely, like, coming up with the 360 PS3 era was definitely like, look at the graphics, look what this can do. But now I think as I've gotten older, I have such a bigger appreciation for art design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that can really make or break. Because especially when you have, obviously, the fact that anyone can download Unreal Engine, anyone can download some assets and basically have a workable game in next to no time is an incredible thing, like a democratization of tools. However, it means that anyone can just get something that someone else has made and it all looks incredible. It kind of all looks the samey because it's that gritty blue and silver like tone, and everything kind of looks hyper realistic except for teeth. No one's managed to do teeth. But then you get a game like Case of the Golden Idol, which has a really fucked up art style. I'm like, yeah, I want to play that weird game.
Yeah, sure.
I want the stuff that pushes things further, makes it a little bit more interesting. Like even with Space Marine, like the graphics are really good, but I'm not concerned about Dimitri and Titus's pores. Like I don't care. It's the sense of scale that the game brings me. It's the seeing all the enemies on screen that I can shoot. Like it's like there is a feeling behind some of those graphics. There's something to it. So that's what I chase more than anything now.
And I think the perfect example of that is like, Immortals of Avium, which is an Unreal Engine 5 game, cutting edge visuals in inverted commas, but just like terrible art design that just looks bad. So it's really shiny and like impressive on one level, but unless that art design is there, it just doesn't work. I think the other thing that I'll say is that like in the future, the cost of this hardware is going to become, prohibitively expensive, increasingly prohibitively expensive. And I think that more and more people will start looking at streaming options, and obviously stuff like NVIDIA GeForce Now and xCloud, which honestly, most people who try those, if your internet is good enough, they're extremely pleasantly surprised by just how well they run and like how one-to-one an experience you can get in terms of what they're like, and if you're looking at a console or a console that's like $1,500 because let's be real, that's a possibility next generation maybe, right? And then, or you're looking at like a PC upgrade, which is going to set you back like $5,000 if you want to go all in. And then you compare that to like a monthly subscription of Xbox Game Pass, right? Where you get a library of games and you get access to the cloud and they play really well. You can play it on any device, any screen that you've got. That's a really compelling value proposition at that point, So I can definitely see that picking up a lot more steam than, another like generation of box. Like there's always going to be a place for that. Don't get me wrong, and I firmly believe that people like us are always going to be drawn to that. But I think the market is going to be less focused on those boxes than they are now.
Do the kids still want a box underneath the TV? I don't think they do. They like iPads.
Well,
I think they do right now.
I think they will in future. That's the thing. But not as many, and not in the same way. I think there's always going to be a place for this, but ultimately, and I think Nintendo, we're going to keep doing their thing in their own way for a couple of like 1 or 2 more generations at least. But even then, I wonder, like eventually they got to. I don't know. Yeah, just the same way that no one owns a DVD player right now, except me. There's one right there. The same way that no one owns vinyl anymore, except me. I've got.
What are you talking about? No, vinyl became right? Vinyl got big again.
But that's what I'm saying. Big is such. Come on, right?
No. Vinyl sales in the US are way higher than you think because they're all in like fucking Urban Outfitters and Taylor Swift releasing 20 different. I don't want to incur the wrath of the Swifties.
Sure.
Billie Eilish did it too, but like releasing 20 different versions of the same
I go to
album.
a real record store and buy records. Like I'm not.
But I would say, okay, sure, but I would still wager that the total vinyl market is still like 0.5% of the entire music industry at this point in terms of dollar
when
sales.
You take streamers,
do you know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about, right?
I have VHSs right there, so I'm part of this weird freak show too.
Sure. You can take your machine to get repaired at the Red Letter Media place.
Yeah, I can actually fix one. I fixed a VCR myself like a couple months ago. Long story, but
I think you told
very long story. I'm sure. So anyway, PS6, not excited about it. Not excited about it at all. TLDR.
I am excited for the like we got it last generation, like the fake renders and the silly speculation that it's gonna have like
Oh,
a see-through
yeah.
glass controller. Like I love shit like
yeah,
that.
I love all
man.
that shit.
That's so much fun.
That's right. Yeah,
Wow.
for sure. Absolutely.
We will have to wait and see. But thank you for your question. As always, comments at no. Oh my god.
What?
See, it's not that easy.
Contact at friendsforsecond.com, or you can leave us in the comment section on the Substack, which I mentioned. Next up. So, I mentioned at the top of the show, a bunch of us got to play Dragon Age: The Veil Guard. Ralph, you're not a Dragon Age person.
Excuse me, how dare you?
Name
Don't
a single
you dare
character. No, don't think about it. Don't think about it. Name a character. Name a character.
Solus.
Did you say Skullus?
Solus.
Okay, no, good.
Excuse me. I played the ever living shit out of Origins.
Origins
I
was
loved
so good.
Origins,
Origins
I
was
fucking
god
loved
tier.
it.
I also played Inquisition. I also played the DLC for Inquisition, and I didn't love Inquisition, but I played it right. But and then like 2, I played like a little bit of a bit of different. But 1 is honestly.
Excellent.
That was god tier back in
Yeah.
the day, like proper
was.
god tier. It's like it was like a CRPG that was also like a cinematic RPG. That was such a great concoction.
Yeah, they were really cooking
And
on that.
I don't think we've ever seen anything like it since, because everything that's gone in that cinematic RPG path has had. I guess actually we have. That's not true. We have Baldur's Gate 3. That is the closest that I can think
Yeah.
of that actually managed to do that, and that was like a 15-year gap, no 20-year gap maybe. I don't know.
2009 to
don't remember.
2020.
Point is, I am very much a Dragon Age fan.
You're not. You didn't sit in on this chat about the Veil Guard with me, Jake, Mr. Matty Plays.
I did not,
and,
because I
Austin,
couldn't go
because-
to. Correct, I couldn't go. We sent Austin to the preview, so
I
Do
don't
you
know
wanna tell
why I
us about the
thought you. I don't know why I thought you weren't a Dragon Age person. I'm sorry. I've misrepresented you,
you really
slandered
have.
you.
It's like Lucy. She's not a Lord of the Rings fan, really. She's
Before we get into the Dragon Age Veilguard chat, I do want to say a quick disclosure from me. Obviously, before we go into this preview event, I did chair the Comic-Con panel, and as part of my day job, there's some branded stuff that fandom's been doing with Dragon Age, which I'm a part of, and so yeah, basically just disclosing that part of the day job. I didn't get paid for it, like outside of my wage. Like, I don't know. I wanted to mention it because
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
good disclosure. We support it absolutely for sure.
But I do love Dragon Age, so.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Hey man, if I had the chance to chair an Outer Wilds panel, I'd fucking do that straight away. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, jump
Hey,
on that
Annapurna, this man right here.
shit. Yeah, all the staff at Annapurna, please,
Oh,
if
yeah,
you're there, hit me up.
all the
You know,
staff
hit
who
me
are
up.
Working at Annapurna still. Anyway,
Yeah.
I wanted to say that before we get into the little chat about the preview. Roll the clip. Take back the clip, because I forgot to introduce the guest.
Yes, very
Wow.
important.
I'm a great host, I promise. So we were joined by obviously Austin, who works with Ralph here on the Skill Up YouTube channel, and Mr. Matty Plays, who also has a very successful YouTube channel. Oh,
Yes.
because you've known
Great
Matty
reviewer. I know
yeah.
Matty for a while.
Yeah.
Really great reviewer, commentator. He specializes. We started specializing in like RPG coverage, particularly Bethesda stuff.
Yes.
But then he branched out into like general coverage. And he's one of the reviewers that I watch. You know, I don't watch too many. But I always really appreciate his takes. Really thoughtful, insightful, down to earth. Doesn't get too caught up in bullshit. You know, like I think he focuses on the right things. So I always appreciate his perspective on stuff. And if you haven't checked him out, you should.
Yeah, he
He's
puts
really
out a lot. He has Mr. Matty Plays, the YouTube channel. He does a podcast, Finding Duke. He also has Retro Rebound, which is a fun
Yeah, he does.
channel
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he kind of talks about random games and stuff.
busy boy.
It's really
Yeah.
scheduled out really well. Like he'll
Yeah,
do,
yeah,
if a new game is coming out or an announcement for a new game a week before, he's like, hey, let's look back at the previous game. It's
Yeah.
really good. It always keeps my brain. It's like something I watch when I eat lunch, which is the highest honor I could bestow.
That is
Ah,
true.
that is the highest
true.
honor. But no,
That's
it was a
true.
good chat. And so now, actually, for real this time, roll VT.
Okay, hello, boys. I have a problem. I don't know anything about Dragon Age: The Veilguard, so I'm glad you're here. Maddie, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's awesome to be here. Like I said earlier, a little terrified, but a little excited at the same time. It's cool to be on this show as a listener. So thank you for having me, man.
No, I mean, as a viewer, listener of you too, it's really cool. Also, I thought you were on the show already, so I'm sorry. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We're all pals here. Austin, hey man.
Yeah.
It's nice to have you on the
doing?
pod. You're on here for the first time too, right?
Yeah, I am just here to replace Ralph. So
One Australian at a time.
Exactly, and it's cool that I realize now I've met all of you in person before being on this podcast. So it's cool.
That's wild.
I got to meet Maddie at the Dragon Age thing, and we had a good chat.
That was awesome, dude. I'm so happy you approached me because I had no idea it was you.
Yeah,
and we ended up hanging all night. It was a really good time, dude.
Totally. I kept like spying you from across the room. I'm like, I'm gonna go say hi at some point, but he's gonna think I'm a weirdo. He's gonna be like, who is
Not
this
at all,
guy?
dude.
I don't want to open my mouth and say hi. I'm Austin, and then he'll be like, who?
Oh, I knew who you were. Right when I heard your voice, I was like, dang, I know that guy.
That's great.
All right, so I don't really know where to start this conversation other than you guys have gotten your hands on a significant amount of the game. I just want to know, temperature check, how you guys are feeling, because this game has been in the works for so long. We've heard so much about it behind the scenes. Now that you're finally getting a glimpse of it, you've seen work in progress versions of it. Maddie, what's your temperature?
I gotta say, man, I really liked it, and I have a pretty, I've been playing Dragon Age since Origins first came out, and I've replayed these games multiple times just for like my channel and the coverage I do. But I really admire that BioWare just said like, hey, here's a whole first act of the game. We had like 5-6 hours to really just play this thing, jumping across a couple of save files, but I was really impressed. Like, I haven't really been authentically excited for a BioWare game since probably Mass Effect 3 before it came out. And so, yeah, just to jump into this and feel out like, oh, the combat has those elements I love from past games. Like I'm pausing the action to like get a little more tactical, like I would in Origins, but it's got the action elements that really started with Dragon Age 2. I appreciate that immensely. I think the character work was pretty exceptional from what we experienced in that pocket. And the more I just thought about it, the more I appreciated it. And my only question walking away from it was like, we got the first act of the game. There's 3 acts in it. Will 2 and 3 kind of live up to what the first one set up? Because there's a lot of characters I love already. Lucanus was awesome. I was surprised by like Harding's performance and how good it was. There's definitely that hesitation where you're like, is BioWare back? Like, I hope so. Because I was really impressed with what I played.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the exact same way as Maddie, to be honest. It's left a really good first impression, and I was quite surprised because I went in with kind of a little bit of skepticism. I'm not actually super attached to the Dragon Age franchise. I've only played like a little bit of 1 and 2. I've probably played more of Inquisition, but I still didn't finish the game. I maybe got like just halfway through. So I was going into this with pretty like fresh eyes, not particularly attached, and I came away pretty pleasantly surprised. I had a really good time. I was surprised by how well the combat clicked together, because from previews, that was the thing that I was most concerned about. It looked a little bit jank, a little bit stiff, but I ended up actually really enjoying it for reasons I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And like Maddie, I'm like super excited to see what Acts 2 and 3 are like, because Act 1, the snippets that we played were very, very strong.
Is this, Lucy, I feel like this is a question for either you or Maddie. Is this, because I'm someone who's only played the original Dragon Age, is this like more, when I look at this at a glance, I'm like, this looks like an Inquisition type thing. Where does it fall? Is it like totally different? Is it like a completely...
I mean, so it is, canonical. It takes into account the events of Inquisition and the Trespasser DLC, which if you haven't played, I strongly recommend you watch a video about it at least, just to set up Solus and everything properly. Well, if you didn't get set up with 75 hours of him, then
that's the guy with the ears, right?
That's the egg.
The egg.
The bald elven mage who's he's the Dreadwolf, which is what this game was originally called. But like Dragon Age games change very drastically between them in terms of gameplay anyway. Like Matty said, the Origins was very much like that tactical cam. 2 was, I think, the complete opposite end of the spectrum with regards to being action focused. And then Inquisition, and I've gone back to Inquisition recently. Inquisition is like this uncomfortable middle child. It doesn't really feel that good to play. Like it's just, I don't know. There doesn't feel like there's any real heft to it. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this preview, and that's, you know, a privileged thing, is that, like Matty and Austin said, like we got to do different builds across different save files. And so I kind of got to experiment with what a late game rogue feels like versus a mid game warrior. I go into every Dragon Age game, every high fantasy game being like, elf mage, that's me, unless it's Skyrim, and then I'm a sneaky archer person. I did mage, and I really liked it, but then I played rogue. Did you guys do the late game game?
I played
end of Act 1 rogue?
late game mage because that is like always what I never play. I'm always ignoring the mage, so I wanted to see how that played. And to your point, I think all the classes are really fun. Like to the point, like I usually am always playing an archer / rogue, but they tend to be quite mundane in these sorts of fantasy games. They're very like boring, just taking pot shots, nothing fancy.
Oh wait,
but like the spell effects are ridiculous, like so cool.
I had a rogue with necrotic damage on my blades. I had a bow and arrow, and then I also had like this shockwave thing that shocked everything in the near radius, and then I had a turret that I would throw that would fire bolts from a distance.
Oh, that ability was so good.
Yeah,
so good.
That was like a crutch for me in one of the boss fights, just chucking the turret out and hiding behind pillars. The turret would do all the work. I think I played in that endgame build the mage, and I was doing like I spec'd into the Spellblade tree, so it was a mix of like melee and ranged magic, and there was a node in the tree that was like, your lightning spells do more damage after fire spells, and your fire spells do more damage after lightning spells. And so I crafted this build that would kind of alternate between both, and I was just totally nuking enemies with that. I mean, I just wanted to say to Lucy's point about how it's a continuation from Inquisition. I think it's still pretty good for new players. Like there's a good onboarding here. In terms of Varric doing this cool little introduction at the start that really, really fills in the gaps, gets you up to speed. And it
that
was more than
transition was sick too. Where they had like the art and they went into the game. I was like, damn, okay, that's a flex.
Yeah. So that works really well. I think if you're scared about, I think this works as a really good entry point into the franchise if you haven't actually played any Dragon Age, or like you, Jake, if you haven't played Inquisition at all, you can still kind of jump in and it should be fine.
Okay, that's good, at least.
Yeah.
Maddie, I didn't hear what class you played. Did you just pick a boring sword guy? Did anybody just play the boring class for me, please? That's what I always do.
I'm built a lot like Lucy. I like my mages as elves. And then I did go with late game rogue. I did late game mage as well. I did try a little sword and boarding, with the warrior class. Did something mid game with him, it was her. And I did not like that one that much, I will say. Like, out of everything that I thought, I think, Austin, we talked about it afterwards, that was like the one part I'm iffy on. Okay. The reason I'm giving it some grace is because there are so many build options in this game. It's honestly terrifying, like with all the specializations and the skill trees and the loot you get, and then the way the runes stack and the equipment system. Like, it's insane. So I think maybe there's a better warrior build for me, but compared to how the rogue felt, and especially the mage was my favorite. But I mean, I think everything felt pretty good generally speaking, but I wasn't crazy about the warrior class that much outside of the Spartan kick. That was cool.
Yeah.
So you got to mess with the physics in the game. That was awesome. But I was really enamored by the mage because one thing they brought back from Origins was the weapon set swapping. And it works really great in this game because you'll have, like, as a mage, this long range staff that's shooting out spells and you're doing strong damage. You have a good range, but you're awful up close. Then you switch to the Orb and Dagger, and now you have this like detonate system where you like build stacks, do a power attack, and like nuke the armor of enemies. So it's really, really fun. But also, while mechanically like simple, like you just have enemies with barriers and armor, and you're kind of just always trying to shatter those with different types of attacks. It all works really well together when you combine that with like the companion abilities and the build crafting. Like, I think people are going to have much more fun with this game than the original gameplay showings have led us to believe, because I think if there's one thing we can probably all agree on after this preview is, like, I was like, wow, they did a terrible job marketing this game. Like, it's just showing it off and kind of being able to display the game's true strengths
Yeah.
I it wasn't until I laid my hands on it. That was someone who was kind of optimistic about it, even after the bad trailers. I was like, wow, like they really didn't show off how great this game is. And so hopefully these previews do some of the heavy lifting for them. But yeah, for me, when it comes to classes, I really like the mage the most.
Well, I mean, I will say, Jake, I think you'll be happy with the warrior. I think I actually found it a lot of fun because I played it straight after the rogue, and I expected it to be quite boring and flat, but no, like the warrior is also really sick to me. I had this like ability that would summon swords from the sky that would like come in and like skewer enemies, and there's
That's
that like
dope.
Spartan kick Maddie mentioned where you just like run and drop kick an enemy and they fly like 100 feet across the room.
You think like Captain America shields and stuff.
Yeah, there's like a
and-
Captain
Yeah.
America shield throw. I know basically every class has like really good baseline functionality. They all have like a dodge, a block, a parry. They've got melee attack, heavy attack, jump attack. They've got pretty like a pretty extensive move set, which is why in my preview I talk a lot about how it's very similar to like God of War. I would
I
say
thought that too. I was like,
yeah.
someone on that team played God of War because like the way that the warrior feels like he's
100%.
so crunchy.
yeah.
It definitely gave me God of War vibes too.
Totally. Like even just like the whole control scheme in combat is very, very similar to God of War.
The runes that
your-
you have to activate.
Exactly. You got a little instant
True.
activation rune thing on top of your, 2 or 3 abilities. It feels very similar. And even just like the overall structure of the game, I found it to be quite comparable to God of War in that it's a very cinematic, heavy, spectacle driven experience, far more so than Inquisition, I think. Like,
And it's
very
not as
cut-through.
massive and like open worldy as Inquisition,
No.
right?
Yeah,
No.
it's got the similar sort of semi-linear structure where you go to a mission and you're sort of shuttled down a path, but then you can loop back to different areas after you finish that level. There's all sorts of like extra hidden rooms and that sort of thing.
The shortcuts, like you can kick down ladders and make a shortcut to get back later. Stuff loops
Yeah.
back in. It's cool. I mean,
Yeah,
in
and I think
terms of
this-
God of War, it's like
Yeah.
the other comparison I would say is like the BioWare influence of Mass Effect 2 with when you get companions involved in combat.
Right.
And
Yeah,
using...
Say more.
Oh yeah, no. So
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
like they're really going in on like companion abilities and your abilities combining. And so in Mass Effect, if I'm wrong about this, shoot me because I don't deserve to be wrong about this. But like in Mass Effect 2, it was like you'd have warp and you'd have singularity and you'd try it out and see what works. And you're like, oh, it could do a detonation, right? This one, it's like explicitly tells you this goes with this and will be great against this person because if you look at an enemy through the ability wheel, it tells you what they're weak to. So it's this great thing of like, heading into every mission, making sure that I've got 2 companions who will synergize really well together. And then, just on the battlefield, yes, a lot of people are kind of a bit mad about the fact that it is obviously very action focused, but you can still have those moments where you set things up and just let it go while you're doing something else. Like you can do that. And so
I mean, here's where, Jake, did you play Anthem?
Yes.
You know the primer detonator system from Anthem?
Okay. Yeah.
So I played like 100 hours of Anthem.
Good
and the
lord.
reason
What?
yeah, I have more hours in Anthem than I have in any other BioWare game.
I like
soul
that.
take that as you will.
Lore, baby.
I have to leave, man.
Yeah, I'm a live service goblin and I ate that shit up. I'm also like a big fan of Iron Man. I love exosuits. That stuff's just cool to me. And there's not a lot of games that fulfill that fantasy. Anthem did. But one of the reasons I like that, I mean, it definitely had a lot of problems, especially in the combat. But I think one of the things it did so well was how satisfying that primer detonator system was, where you paint enemies with abilities that set up the primers, and then other abilities will detonate them, or you'll have other players detonate them for you.
Yeah.
And here, like, it really works perfectly, I think, in the Dragon Age formula, because you've got all these teammates, and now you can kind of manually control who sets up the detonations and the primers. And as Lucy said, like, it's really easy to use in the middle of combat because the game just tells you like which abilities will combine together for that detonation. Works really well. So
In a weird way, it's kind of a love letter to every previous BioWare game, is how I've started to interpret it. Like, you see Mass Effect in this game, you see every Dragon Age game in this, you even see Anthem. It's got like the fun
Totally.
parts of all of
What
them.
about Jade Empire?
I guess, yeah, because it's, I mean, no martial arts, but you are like jumping around a lot and fighting dudes. So kind of Jade Empire. But it really does remind me as someone who, has a lot of love for pretty much every BioWare game in one way or another outside of, sorry, Austin, outside of Anthem.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I don't blame you.
Yeah, I really do have a lot of love for their games. And so it was cool to see how this felt like a celebration of it all. I actually had the opportunity to interview their director, Corinne Bush, and she told me how like the Mass Effect team is like in on this game as much as the Dragon Age team, and that normally they're split off, but they're part of their new initiative was kind of coming together and working through these projects together as a whole. So I think that's why we're seeing more past games influence Dragon Age Veilguard more. But that's one of the things I loved about it most, was just seeing all those elements, because even I could admit that the detonate system from Anthem's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
Just like the crunch, the big like deep bass sound it would make when you did the explosion and the damage numbers flying off. You get that in Dragon Age now, which I think is great.
So how about the RPG stuff? A couple of you guys mentioned companions, but like, how does that stuff go down? Are you really spending a lot of time with them, trying to woo people? How does it work? Did you guys have like favorites in this demo period or what?
Lucy, you go
Oh,
first.
my
You look
favorite's
very
Lucanus
excited.
already.
Yeah,
Like,
Lucanus is gonna be the new Astarion. He's the new I can fix me boy. So
he's no, so like the way the companions work, it's different now. You can romance or you can flirt with all of them. Did you guys do the gifting thing? Because I know you can give stuff to. I didn't do any
I didn't
of
get
that.
to try that.
no.
You can give stuff to them. Like, I don't know. These kind of games kind of live or die on their companions. Like Dragon Age 2 is not my favorite, but it still had companions that I love. Like I'm a Meryl defender. You know, those are the highlights really for me. Like I love good combat. I love good RPG systems, but it does live and die by companions, because ultimately that's who you are sharing the journey with. And so paring it down to, I think there's like 6 of them. We didn't really get a good look at Tash. She was just kind of in the final mission.
Well, the old guy, the necromancer.
Oh, Emmerich.
Who was the name of it?
Yeah,
Emmerich, yeah.
because I didn't get to talk to. I did play rock paper scissors against Manfred, the skeleton boy. I didn't get
Really?
to talk to him. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I found him in the lighthouse. You could just play rock paper scissors.
Cool.
But I mean, overall, it's like I was really pleasantly surprised with how they were introduced. At least, like meeting Balara, and she was immediately just, I don't know, she just felt like a character. She wasn't too exposition. I mean, actually, a thing that I really enjoyed about it in general is that it wasn't too exposition heavy. Like it.
Yeah.
I get really bogged down with playing games and they're like, well, back in the Dragon Age, and you know, we have to do this, and this is what the Grey Wardens are and stuff. It's like, no, if you there are ways to tell those stories over, like as part of a conversation where it feels natural. And I think
Totally. I picked my background as the Shadow Dragons. I don't know anything about the Shadow Dragons.
Sounds
to be honest
cool.
With you. But yeah, exactly. Sounds
literally
cool.
why I picked
But in like the first hour, I got a pretty good sense of who they are just based on my conversations with Nev, who is also a Shadow Dragon. She just kind of like explained, oh, we used to do this back in the day. We would like underground in Minthara, blah, blah, blah. So that worked out really well. I was surprised by how much I liked the companions. I think they leave a really great first impression, more so than even like Inquisition's characters, because I feel like Inquisition, your introductory quests to those companions were like sometimes just like a 10-minute thing where you just walk over to them, you have a little conversation, and they're like, great to meet you, I'm joining the band, and I know absolutely nothing about them. Whereas here, I feel like they get some proper setup. Usually like they each introduced in a full sort of campaign mission, and you get a good sense of who they are, and they're all quite unique in their personalities, and I liked it a lot. They have this kind of like family vibe to them, like the Guardians of the Galaxy game kind of. That's what it reminded me of. There were like multiple scenes where you're all just sort of sitting around the table or around the campfire, like discussing plans, debriefing on things that have happened, and those are some really nice moments. Yeah, I really enjoyed them. For me, Harding was kind of like a surprise highlight.
yeah.
She was great.
I love her.
Maddie,
I love that.
I wanted to ask you, I really wanted to know from all you guys, but I'll start with you. Are there question marks still? Is there something you didn't enjoy or something you still have, you need an answer to? What's going on?
I would say I don't want to act like there was zero concerns, but I felt very convinced that they're going to deliver something really great here. I guess it comes down to, are they going to fully execute on what I think they're cooking here, which is like, I've been predicting that this is very much like Dragon Age's Mass Effect 2 moment. And I know that's like a very bold claim because people love Mass Effect 2, but I feel like the journey we're on is leading toward like one of those massive missions where it's like the stakes are incredibly high. Because by the end of Act 1, you're like, this feels like the end of many games.
Totally.
And the way they just build these characters and the struggles they immediately go through and how quickly you attach yourselves to them, I'm like, yeah, this feels high stakes. So I get a little bit of that. So when I have that hope in my heart, I'm like, I guess it's just, can they deliver? And because those first introductions to those companions, I really liked all of them. I had some quips with like, I would say voice performance. Like,
yeah,
I like Balara a lot as a character. And so we got to run through the Assault on Weishaupt, which is the mission, for those who are wondering, that they showed with the high level gameplay. Okay. It was there. I had Balara with me, and I forgot who else with me, but Balara yelled out a line. I was like, that didn't seem right to me. And I thought it was just not written well. But then I ran through that mission again because I think I was testing like the rogue build for the end game. And I had Harding with me instead. And she yelled out that same line. It sounded just so good. I was like, oh, okay, like it's a delivery thing here. So I have some mild concerns about that. Like Neb, for example, in combat, she's sounded very flat. And I don't know if that's like part of her character or not. Like she's supposed to be just that cold. But I guess it would be those little things. But if that's what I'm kind of picking out, I think the game is doing pretty good overall. So it's just about, can they deliver for a full however many hours? They seem to be very cagey on that. I've asked so many people at BioWare, I'm like, how long is this game going to be? They're like, it's a big game. I'm like, okay.
I reckon it's going to clock in at like 30, 40 hours, because we played like 6 hours of Act 1, but there were many characters we didn't have, missing, introductions to. There were bits missing. Like Act 1 alone is going to run like 10 hours, probably like 12 if you do side quests and stuff. So whole game, it's gonna be meaty.
I'm getting the vibe it's bigger than that. I don't know. I hope it's a tighter experience, but I'm getting the vibe that it's a bigger game from, because like when I looked at one of the save files we had, it said like 14, 15 hours by the time we were at that assault at the end of Act 1. And I don't know if that accounted for like all the conversations you could have at the lighthouse and everything, because that's like the one thing I didn't really get to fully indulge in. So I feel like there's a lot of meat on the bones here, which I guess makes sense. This has been in development for so long. But yeah, in the terms of concerns, like, I guess that would really be it. It's just executing the story, because like Lucy said, I think these games live and die by their companions, and if they can deliver a high stakes story with all of them attached to that, I have no reason right now to not believe this won't be a home run. So that's kind of where I lie on the concerns department.
Anybody else? Speak now.
Oh, I had one and I've forgotten what it is. Interact and jump are still mapped to the same button, I'm afraid. Inquisition.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I do remember, I think I remember running around these maps, picking stuff up and just constantly jumping, just dodging them.
I remembered what it was. So one of the things that it got to be a bit grating. Obviously, you're playing a build of a game and, not everything is in there. So it's difficult to gauge how frequently you would be coming up against these particular instances, but destroying blight pustules is just like a puzzle that I was just doing over and over again, and I was like, I'm kind of a little over this now, and I worry. And the crystals to unlock doors too.
Yeah, and there's these like mini puzzles that kind of like dot these missions, and they're pretty meh. Like the crystal one you're talking about, you basically just, when there's a door, you just have to find a little crystal to slot in the door, and it's usually like 5 meters away. You just have to run down a hallway and grab it.
There's those, and then there's the ones with the red doors, and you have to destroy the crystals too, and follow them around. And then sometimes you'll have a door that's blocked by blight, and you have to go around and destroy all of those ones. So it's like, it's a similar thing that you just kind of do over and over again. And like I said, you can't really gauge how frequently or like how quickly you'll come up against it, but I think because I did a bunch of it in quick succession, I was like,
yeah.
But I mean, again, it's like, I really enjoyed what I played. Like Matty said, it's a demo. It's not a demo, but it's like, it is a part of the wider game, and I really hope they pull it off. The fact that it is tickling Mass Effect 2 kind of vibes for me is a very positive indicator, but proof will be in the pudding absolutely when the full game comes out. But I mean, it's a very confident showing from BioWare. Like, bringing that many people in to play for 6 hours, that's very confident.
Yeah, really speaks to their confidence. I agree. I mean, I'm like you guys, I don't really have a lot of nitpicks, to be honest. I think the main question mark for me is like side quests. The good news is that because I interviewed the game director, she said that it's not like Inquisition where you had a lot of padding between the main quests where you have to do a ton of side quests just to progress that main golden path. Here it's quite linear. You are shuttled through the main story. You don't have to do any side stuff to complete the campaign, which is awesome. I only managed to do like one of the side quests, and it was like, okay, I just kind of had to run around to some areas of the map I hadn't been to before to kill some mini bosses, pick up some items, and come back. But there was some nice narrative dressing there. I just hope that if they're taking so much inspiration from God of War, that the side quests are like the God of War side quests, which were also really good and really helped bolster the main story. It sounds like they're going for something similar with this, but I guess we'll see.
Well, I'm definitely interested now. Thank you. Your job is done.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts or concerns before I let you guys go?
I feel like there's just so much to unpack with the game. You know, I think more than anything, I guess I'm relieved it's more linear. I know some people, I was just eavesdropping at the event. Some people were like, man, it's not like Inquisition. I'm like, what do you mean, man, it's not like Inquisition? I'm like,
do you remember the Hinterlands? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, the Hinterlands were, I remember like, that was the moment in my life I felt most deceived by that game because I was just like I was just stuck in there, like going through the content, like certainly I'll get through it all at some point. You never do. But I just love that, like, for example, the power table's gone. That was in Inquisition, and you had to like do these side objectives to rank up your power, and then you'd actually get to the good stuff, which is the main story. There's no fluff here. And so I guess if there's anything I want to emphasize, it's that, like, I didn't really get this idea that there's a ton of fluff. It's more like the stuff you want to engage in a BioWare game on the side, like your companions and maybe side quests that pertain to the factions they're part of, that sort of stuff. And, you know, we got to look at one of the companion missions. It was really good. So if that's what the side content's going to deliver compared to what we got in the past, I'm very, very excited. So yeah, just less fluff. And I think it's a good thing.
All right. Seems promising. Before we go, Austin, thank you for being here. Can you tell the folks what you got cooking up, what you're working on? Can you give anybody a tease or what?
Not really, to be honest.
Top secret. Yeah.
A little bit top secret, I suppose. I think in the background, I've just been playing World of Warcraft, like the new expansion, and hoping to do a video on that, but we'll see how that goes. But outside of that, yeah, just super secret review stuff, pretty much. So
fun.
I love that. Maddie, what about you? Where first of all, where can people find you, and what are you making?
Oh man. First of all, thank you for having me. Really appreciate you guys having me on. This is really cool to be here. You know, for me, I am on Mr. Maddie, or you can find me on Retro Rebound. I'm reviewing a ton of stuff as well. Some stuff under embargo. I don't know how super top secret it is compared to Austin over here, but definitely got a lot cooking over there. Otherwise, I've been playing a lot of Predecessor, which is like this new MOBA. I am like a MOBA freak on the side. Like, it's just that one thing I play that probably people watch my content never think I do.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I've been really enjoying it, man. Like, I was a big Smite player for years and then stopped. The alpha came out. I was like, this isn't really in a good spot. Naturally, it's an alpha. So I went over to Predecessor because it just hit 1.0, and I think I got like 15 hours in it. So I'm just playing that between reviews, and it's been really good. But yeah, if anyone wants retro content, Retro Rebound. If you want my thoughts on current things, Mr. Maddie Plays. But otherwise, just a privilege to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Yeah, thanks,
from there, I don't know how to end. Lucy, how do we end these? What do we say? All right, now back to you.
Now back to you in the studio.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to drink your special drink, the drink you drink every morning. It's AG1.
Yeah. That's right. I'm actually reading here. They've given us new talking points, and I've learned that in a study, 80% of participants notice less gas and bloating after 30 days of drinking AG1.
That's great.
Did not know that.
That's significant.
I mean,
the business pitch there is like, hey, are you a disgusting ball of gas? Are you just like a gross little goblin man? Drink this.
But it also says 97% of participants felt digestion improved after 90 days of drinking AG1. And they also said, this is from a previous read, but they said that people who drink AG1 need less coffee in their lives. That's cool. I like that. And I've been drinking AG1 for a while now. I always love it. It's just a really nice start to my day. As I've said before, it's just really good to know that you've started by giving your body something good as opposed to eating Belgian waffles with Nutella or whatever, because they're really tasty and they're a great start to the day too in their own way. But I think this is slightly better for your system personally.
Yeah, AG1 has prebiotics, probiotics, gut health stuff, supporting digestion, reducing bloating, like we said, keeping you regular. And that's just good. You want all that stuff. And to start your day with just this, it's a scoop in some water. It tastes good. You're good to go. So you did something good to start your day.
Yeah, and no added sugar. Super easy. Yeah, we all do it every morning. I'm about to go traveling again. I always take my travel packs with me. So if you want to start with AG1 and feel a difference for yourself, they have been a partner with us for a very long time. You can try AG1 and get a free bottle of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/friends, which is a $48 value for free if you go to drinkag1.com/friends. Thanks again to AG1 for sponsoring the podcast.
Okay, so I missed that chat. I have heard from Austin on his take, because we've been working on the script for his preview, so I got a sense of that. But what was the takeaway from Maddie and Lucy? Is it like, you know, is everyone positive? Is all green across the board?
It seems like it's looking promising. I always still with previews, I'm always like, yeah, but like they could really drop the ball at the end.
Sure.
But it seems like they're really into it. I did not give a shit about this game, to be completely honest. I just had too many other things on my radar, and I'm like, yeah, okay, like I'll get to that eventually. But now hearing about it, I'm like, oh man, this could potentially be good, and this sounds like something I would be interested in. Also, Austin is great.
Austin is we did a terrible job of introducing Austin.
Yeah,
because he's like the man who needs
plays.
no introduction because he's so great. But
I know everyone always says that they wish that he did all the reviews on the channel now, and I'm like, wow, thanks guys.
I get it. I like your
That's
audience.
really nice.
Yeah, that is he is the better skill up. Yeah.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. It's really, really nice to feel that here in this podcast as well as in my comment section.
It's the friendship. It's really friendship per second. That's what it is. That's what we do.
No, but Austin is, really fantastic at what he does, and I've always felt very lucky to have him on board, and yeah, really, 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 really grateful. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you guys had a good chat with him. Yeah, very interested in Dragon Age myself as well. Like, as I said, as a fan of the series, Lucy, I will say that the idea of like God of Dragon Age doesn't really thrill me personally. Like, I hear that.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I thought God of Dragon Age is what you were calling yourself.
What? Not quite. But I think that the idea of the God of Warification of Dragon Age sits quite uncomfortably with me. But I didn't like the MMOification of it either with Inquisition. I really just want it to be another CRPG, right?
Yeah.
Which, for sure, it's not that. I have to accept it. It's fine. Having said that, if you did make a God of War game that with like the cinematic RPG party-based decision stuff baked into it,
I'd play it.
That could also be cool.
Yeah.
That could work. I can see it. And so I'm definitely keeping an open mind. But I will say though, and I'll just say this right up top, I really don't like the art style. I just not about it, man. It's just the faces of the characters, they look so clean and airbrushed and just not about that at all. That's the one part.
How did you like Inquisitions? Because Inquisitions was waxy, I would say.
It was, but also we had different standards back then, like in terms of what we expected. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was a different era. But now, like, we're looking at what they did with even just Baldur's Gate. You know what I mean? And how far facial animations and technology have come. Just this one, I look at this and I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, right? Having said that, keeping an open mind. Maybe if I'm immersed in the whole experience end to end, I come to really like it. But yes, so I'm cautiously optimistic for this one because I really want BioWare to just crush it.
Yeah.
I really want them. I don't want there to be any doubts about the future existence of that studio.
No.
I just want them to exist and be happy and keep making cool games. I want another Mass Effect game, so I really want this to be successful for that and many other reasons. So yeah.
I agree.
Desperately want another Mass Effect. More on Dragon Age as we get closer to release, which is actually not that far away. I can't believe.
No,
basically almost
Jesus.
October.
It's like 6 weeks. It's less than 6 weeks from Dragon Age. Oh my god.
Which feels
Wild,
surreal.
wild.
It feel like
When is it? End of
10
October?
It's end of October.
Halloween.
Oh yeah, how dare they release it on Halloween?
No, it just feels weird after 10 years, man. Like I went to BioWare 10 years ago for Inquisition. Which
That was a different time.
Man, you've been at this a long time.
Yeah.
She is 37, so you know, she's had the time.
Just getting nipped and tucked over. Anyway, we have another user question this time from our email, which is contact@friendspersecond.com. This is from Jeff Young. Hi again. I'd like to send... I sent a question in July, but I've thought of another one I'd like to ask because no one seems to have a clear answer on this. So that's a lot of pressure, Jeff, because that means that we have to have a clear answer on it.
Totally.
How would you all define what makes someone a casual gamer versus a hardcore gamer? And do you think those terms are enough to encompass what a gamer generally is, or does it fall short?
Casual gamer is Call of Duty and FIFA, right? They're the two games. And in your case, I suppose Madden, definitely.
Fortnite.
Americans, yeah.
No. That's like a whole... No, jokes aside, I actually am endlessly fascinated by the different ways that you can kind of carve up audiences in this space and how like granular it gets.
Oh yeah.
Because the Fortnite ecosystem is its whole own separate thing of people who came in when they were like 8 years old or whatever, or 10, and you know maybe they've graduated out of it now, but maybe they're still playing it at age like 15 or 16 or whatever. But it's this because it's so massive, it's its own ecosystem. Minecraft falls into the same bucket. Roblox is another thing where it falls into that bucket. But then you start getting into like that sort of like sweaty competitive shooter space of the dudes who play a lot of COD and Rainbow Six and just like all of that sort of stuff. There is that mobile space which we don't really know about here in like or like but like in Asia, you know what I mean? Like it's absolutely massive, which is all that. There's your like strategy nerds, you know, mainly Europeans or whatever, who just buy like medieval town builders and like, you know, war games or whatever.
There's also I've met a lot of casual people that don't touch any other video games, but they play MOBAs. They just play League of Legends and Dota, and that's it. And I'm like, what? You ever play Spider-Man? They're like, no, what's that?
Nah.
You
But
know,
see, they're not casual though. They're like the hardest of hardcore
Yeah,
nerds.
you
Which
play
is
just
why
properly
I
play.
want to get into where I think of hardcore gamer. It can also be a bunch of different things. Where
Yeah.
hardcore gamer, you think it might just be someone who just is like immersed, like us, just talking about the news, freaking out, playing every game, going nuts. But someone could just do that with one game and like sink their entire life away to one genre, and I consider that.
well, so that's
pretty
the thing. So
hardcore.
I've been trying to conceptualize in my mind of a graph,
Oh, here we go.
There we
right?
go.
Axes.
Okay.
What is the
What are
quote?
we
We
talk-
exist in the context of what we are, or whatever.
No, like is it you know, hours spent playing versus how much of your life do you spend immersed in the world? Like, are you reading news? Are you watching streamers?
Sure.
Are you like, I'm trying to think, is there a way to quantify it? And I really
know what
don't
you
think
mean.
there is.
Like that Pritchard scale at the start of Dead Poets
What is that
Society.
other thing? There's
what
this
you're trying to
other
do.
there's this other subcategory where, and I've seen it a lot with people who watch our videos, people who are like, hey, I haven't played a video game in 6 years, but I watch every gaming YouTube video.
I know.
Yeah.
What is that?
Those
What are they
people
called?
are so funny. I'm like, what is going on? How? Why? Why are you doing this?
But I guess
I
like,
think it's so
I do
funny.
that to a degree. Like, you know, I've gotten really big into speed running, and
Yeah.
like, it's like I would
Yes.
never do speed running because I just don't think I could.
No, but you're still interested in video
still play
games as a
video
thing.
games.
Do you know what I mean?
But
Like,
then also, hang on. A non-gaming example is that I watch a lot of art restoration videos, and it's relaxing to me. So maybe those people are
Sure.
getting the same thing, where it's like, I'm not going to do
Okay.
this hobby, but it's a relaxing touch point to come back to.
I guess so, but it's also a case of there are certain things that you watch where you know you could never do it. You'd be like when those videos where they like tear apart a cruise ship and they just
can do that.
deconstruct it for scrap. You know, like I'll never have the chance to do that, but it's fun to watch it. Whereas with gaming, it's like, well, you could just reach across to your phone and install fucking Jetpack Joyrider. Do you know what I mean? Like it's fine. So I don't know. I think obviously the real answer to this question is we can't gatekeep it, and it's however people choose to sort of identify, right? As if they say they are a hardcore gamer and they believe that, then obviously they've internalized it in their personality enough where that's what they think. And I don't think anyone else can say, nah, man, you're not really a hardcore gamer. It's like it's for them to decide, right? But I think it does come down to that thing about how much you internalize it into your personality, how core it is to who you are, you know, and if you think about games and like the way I often put it when I'm talking to people externally, like people say, who watches you? And I say, the kind of people that watch me are the people that live from game to game. You know what I mean? People who is like, that's what motivates them in terms of what they're looking forward to in the future. Like that's the thing that they're thinking about when they're not doing their jobs or whatever else. You know what I mean? That's typically the kind of person that watches my content. That's how I view myself. That is definitely one definition of like hardcore gamer, but there's so many others, I suppose.
Yeah.
For me, it personally is just like how much have you internalized this hobby as a part of your identity and personality. I think that's ultimately what it boils down to.
I think so, too.
And for me, I consider myself a hardcore gamer because I take everything really personally. I know this sounds really weird, but like when people are shitting on something or like just like being down about like just video games, I'm like, no, don't. Like I get like personally upset because I just like the hobby. I'm not like a corporate shill for it all, but like I just am like, fuck no. Like no, this is my thing. Like stop. Like
Yeah.
The thing was like, it's so weird that, you know, Jeff's part of this question is like, is it enough to encompass what a gamer generally is? And it's like, I guess, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like there isn't, what's an equivalent of a movie fan? Like there are the people who write movie titles in all caps
like Jordan
on Twitter.
Midler.
yeah.
Famed movie enjoyer, Jordan Midler. But like, I don't know. I wouldn't really say that I love movies as a big part of my... I wouldn't say I'm a casual movie watcher.
Yeah.
You know?
But the thing is, because I have this level of knowledge and commitment to the world of video games, I would actually describe myself as a casual movie enjoyer, even though I love cinema. I fucking buy 4K movies.
Oh, but compared to...
Because I have that comparison
games,
point,
yeah.
I'm like, well, I could not possibly call myself a cinephile because I don't have anywhere near the same level of knowledge in cinema that I do in video games. So therefore, I am a casual cinema enjoyer, even though I have, you know, I've seen all the canon and I love cinema and it's like a part of who I am, right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does make sense, but it's also like, it's something I would just never say about myself. You know, like on my Twitter bio or something, I would never put...
Yeah. Lucy, Lord of the Rings, flag, country, mom. You do these ones. That's what you put on there.
Jesus Christ.
That's what it also says on the bio. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Do you guys think...
I like being a gamer.
Do you guys think, you know, I believe someone who has fallen off, who got busy.
It's harsh, man. We're all trying our best. We're doing our best.
Get
man.
Austin
Come on.
back.
Someone who's fallen off the hobby, right? So someone who has kind of like going back to what we said.
That really tickled me.
That got
Oh
him.
God.
There you
Right,
go.
That got me good. There we go. Go on.
I was just gonna say, you know, somebody who was insane with games, but then fell off. Life happened. They've moved on.
Yeah.
I still would consider that person a hardcore gamer because it's almost like anybody I can have a war story with, even if it's with an
Sure.
older game. You know, like, oh man, Nash your shotguns, huh? Yeah, that was crazy. Like, you're a hardcore gamer. All right, that's good for me. Like, you know, as long as there's like something and like time spent, I'm good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. I get that.
I like
That's true.
that.
That's very true. So,
I like
but yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's like whatever people say. You know, can't really like tell people who they are. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting question though.
Yeah.
I think it's a really it's like, and as I said, I do think about it quite often because I think we're always thinking about like who our audience is and what they're interested in, and then people ask you who your audience is, and so yeah, no, I do think it's quite an interesting question.
Think about it when I look at myself in the mirror.
Am I
Who am I?
hardcore enough?
Am
I look at the
Yeah.
dark circles under my eyes and I'm like, am I
Yeah.
hardcore?
Yeah.
Hardcore to the mega. Might replay Disco Elysium.
That's always a good idea.
Yeah. Every time
Why
I think
not?
of hardcore, I think of that guy. And anyway, a random
Yep.
thought.
Yep.
Anyway, we spoke to the team behind Ara History Untold. So we have executive producer Matt Turnbull and the narrative and experience lead Gabriella Lesker. We had a fun chat with them about the upcoming game. Here you go.
Okay, just before the interview starts, a quick disclaimer. Matt's internet, unfortunately, a little bit shaky, and as a result, some of his answers are a little bit like hard to hear sometimes. Overall, it's fine, but if you hear a little bit of like digitization, Daft Punk kind of stuff kicking in, just like write it out because it does get better.
What do you mean Daft Punk? Oh, like around the world.
Please, just
but like a
Stu,
robot voice,
Stu,
like
Stu, Stu, Stu,
robot voice.
Stu, roll the interview.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with Matt. You said you've been around with this project since pretty much the beginning. So that's what I want to know here is what was the genesis of Ara? Like what made the studio set out and say, we're going to do grand strategy, that type of thing, but do it differently?
So when Oxide first came to meet with us, they had a game they wanted to pitch, and it was their dream game. They wanted to take everything that they'd learned from building really big strategy games, popular strategy games, and reinvigorate the genre, bring something new to it, make some changes, do the kind of things that they dreamt about doing, but had never really had the opportunity to do. And for Xbox, this is our first time doing turn-based strategy. We've never really partnered with a company or had an opportunity to do this before. And so it was just a really fantastic, really exciting opportunity for us to work with some of the best experts in the world in this space and help them bring their vision to life.
Is that like a thing for Xbox, by the way? Like they look at their portfolio and they think, well, we don't have this type of game, so we need that. Is that how? Because we assume that's how publishers work, but we don't know that. But does that factor into the thinking?
Honestly, I've been at Xbox a long time, and I think everything factors into thinking of all kinds, all business decisions, all game decisions, creative decisions. But at the end of the day, the thing that always tops it, the thing that is the number one most important thing is always, are these people some of the best in the world at what they do? Are they amazing? Are they wanting to make something that we think can be great and that people will love? And do we have an audience for it? Is there a group of people we think are out there that are going to want to play it? Because our whole mission here is to just sort of bring the joy of gaming to as many human beings across the planet as we possibly can. And so anytime something comes along that is such a strong opportunity, such a strong bet with such an amazing group of people, it's hard to pass that up, even if we do have 3 of those somewhere in the portfolio. And with how we've been expanding, I don't think there's a single genre at this point that somewhere in Xbox there isn't somebody working on.
Sure, that's so true. Yeah. So obviously I've heard about the title, haven't actually had the chance to play it yet. But very interested in what it looks like. You've sort of said that it's this kind of new thing that's kind of looking to make a new contribution to the genre. So, Gabriella, how would you describe what Ara is and like what makes it different to other 4X games like Civilization or those other big ones that we know?
So first, I'll use some buzzwords. Then I'll give a quick description, and then I'll talk about the things that I think make it different. So we're talking about buzzwords or like keywords that you would Google, right? 4X, historical grand strategy, turn-based. Those are some of the common keywords you would use to describe Ara. But when I think about it as a narrative lover person myself, it is an opportunity for you to step in to be the leader of a nation, guiding its path from ancient history all the way up into near future times. And you have the opportunity to make unique choices that contribute to something called prestige, which is our scoring system in the game. And that's one of the things that differentiates Ara. First, we have our prestige system, which is based on a bunch of different domains. You don't need to focus on being a military power only, or just a religious leader, or just a cultural powerhouse. You can have all of these elements be part of your nation, and they all matter and they all contribute to how you might win the game. Another thing that really makes Ara exciting for me and different in this space is the living world. This is the ability to zoom into the map and see individual blades of grass kind of swaying in the wind, to see your little citizens walking around your cities, and to actually see the wildlife represented in the game, kind of like you would see it in a nature documentary. So this is something we're really excited about, and it ties into our procedurally generated regions, which are shaped a little bit differently. They're around natural landmarks, around coastlines, around rivers. They're not the normal tile that you would see. And then finally, another thing I think that really differentiates Ara is the importance of, in this prestige system, how happy, how healthy, how educated, how safe your citizens are really matters. It's not just about your nation doing well. Are your people doing well? Are your people being taken care of? And that ties into our crafting system, which is taking all of these resources you see in the living world and bringing them in to make new items for your people and for your buildings. Bread, wine, cheese, these are important. The ability to make things like a plow for your farm. I think the simultaneous turns, the living world, simultaneous turns, the ability in multiplayer to really have that quick pace so that everyone can keep excited that all of your choices are happening at once. These are some of the things that I think set Ara apart and really make it singular. It's different. It's a new IP, and it's just trying to be the best Ara it can be first and foremost.
Yeah, that definitely was apparent to me as soon as I touched the game. You guys are thinking differently, specifically with it's not tile based. So what was the decision behind that? Is it a visual thing? Is it a gameplay thing? And does that did that cause problems in development? Is that a challenging thing to implement to the layman?
Oh yeah, Matt was there from the beginning, but it was very challenging. Matt, do you want to speak to some of that process?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's an everything decision, honestly. It's sort of at the heart of the game to a large extent. When we were working with Oxide first, and they kind of came to, again, with the living world and with the organic regions, the natural regions, there were a bunch of gameplay reasons that this makes a ton of sense. There's things like irregular number of borders. There's things like more natural borders and more interesting combat, more interesting warfare that can occur when you have mountain passes, when you have rivers, when you have all these sort of different borders that go along different things, different sizes of regions. But then beyond that, they had been building their own custom engine to be able to support a living world of this scale, of the size of this kind of a game. And then kind of the last piece that they came to us with was about the fantasy, right? It's about the player fantasy, about really living in it. These games can sometimes feel like playing a board game. Like you're sitting there, you're moving your knight, your king, your rook, and you're playing this board game. You're with little meeples or moving around the board. But for Ara, they really wanted to deliver on that fantasy of it being a world that you've transformed, a world that you've changed with your decisions, with your choices, with your leadership, and you getting to see the outcomes reflected, in the actions of your citizens, in the way that the earth changes.
I think one thing that's doesn't quite, because I haven't played the game yet. I know, Jake, you have, but one thing that I kept hearing about in the lead up to it was this, and you mentioned it as well, Gabrielle, simultaneous turn resolution in a 4X style game. How exactly does that work? That doesn't actually make sense to my brain.
Yes. Okay. Let's try to break it down. Let's see if I can make it make sense. Matt, keep me honest here. So I know when I was growing up and I was playing these types of games with my family, we would all take quite a bit of time on each of our turns, right?
Yeah.
I take my turn. My Uncle Bob takes his turn. We go around. We spend a whole hour going, shout out Uncle Bob, right? So it could take quite a while because you take your turn, everyone sees what you did, and then they take their own. So they can, one, respond to your action, and they are taking it at a separate time. Simultaneous turns is what if me and Uncle Bob are taking our turn at the same time? So we both have a turn where we're queuing up orders. And upon clicking the end turn button, once we've all, either reached our time limit or we have clicked the button, all of us, our individual actions that were in the queue are resolved simultaneously, taking us into the next turn. So instead of
I see.
Yeah,
Right,
does that make sense?
Okay, it does actually. It now
Nailed
makes
it,
sense.
yeah.
Now that I'm like, oh, well, that sounds pretty obvious actually. So, yeah.
It takes a ton of the randomness out of things. It takes a ton of the player advantage, first turn advantage. Every game in the world that's ever been designed that's turn based has a first turn advantage of some kind or a first turn disadvantage, depending on the game. But it's something where when it's almost like the old board game Diplomacy, where everybody has to write down all their moves and then you hide them and then you flip them over at the end. And then that's when you get that moment of discovery. That's when you get that moment of excitement. Like, oh no, this person that said they were going to move their ships didn't. And now I'm in this conflict I didn't expect. And we wanted to be able to evoke those same feelings, because in real life, it's not a game of chess. It's not all of my guys shoot and then all of your guys shoot. It's battles occur because two groups of people came together in a spot trying to both control the same area or trying to escape from the same area and trying to get away while another one was trying to chase them. The game itself is designed with a number of rules like speed and initiative for things that determine what happens in what order. So it's never about how fast I click or how fast you click. It's never about whether you queued in order before me or I queued in order before you. It's always about the game rules. And that means it's a deterministic state, and it's a lot more interesting in our opinion for strategy. That said, it was really much harder to develop than I think anybody expected. And it's one of the things that took us the longest partnering with Oxide to do this. It was one of the things that they had the most challenging time trying to, because there are just so many little things that you don't expect to have happen. Like, so if you're building the Eiffel Tower and someone else wants to build the Eiffel Tower at the same time, how does that resolve? If both of those orders went into the queue at the same time, if you have two players and they're trying to get to a trade agreement with each other and you send a message and they're sending a message, how does that resolve? There were just all of these edge cases and interesting things that had to be solved. And it took no lie, like years to kind of break that down. It was one of those things where Dan always shared with me one of my favorite stories. Like, why has nobody ever done this before? It seems so much more natural. Why hasn't this happened? Why haven't? And then like he gets 3 years into doing it. He's like, I know why nobody's ever done this before. I know why this was a lot harder than it looks. And so we kind of discovered that as we went. But I'm happy with where it landed.
Yeah. I guess that's like a broader question I have as well, Gabriella. Like, is it a massive pain in the ass to make a game like this, right? Because like you imagine making because you hear the hardest games in the world to make are like fighting games, right? Just because the amount of shit that you have to do and balance and whatever else like that. And then I'm like, it has to be pretty high up there that these sorts of like 4X strategy games are tough, just because of the number of variables, the number of things. Is it like, what is the process of making one of these as compared to, I don't know, whatever other stuff you might have worked on or other stuff you know about?
I think that it helps to have a good team. If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, right? So having like team members you can rely on is huge. We have some of the smartest people I've ever worked with here. And I truly mean that, as well as like just great people to work with. And I think that's first and foremost what you need on a game like this. You need people who are curious, who see a big problem and look for the solution, as opposed to just thinking this is like something insurmountable. So having a bunch of curious problem solvers is key, and having the right partnerships. Being able to partner with Xbox and with Microsoft and vice versa, them having us, I think was a big part of what made this all possible. What made it fun is that we had our own areas of expertise that we brought to the challenge that helped us work through it. So you have there are people I work with who are almost like mathematician level, understanding, okay, how does this balance with this, balance with this, balance with that? I have one engineer who I know I can ask him for basically this impossible thing, and he'll just come back with a smile tomorrow with me like, oh yeah, like that was hard. So having these individual contributors who come to the table makes it possible. I think with this type of game, you have to think about, if we are inspired by history, if we are inspired by real life, how do we gamify these processes in a way that is fun for people, that makes sense, but also doesn't keep you in the slog of all of the gritty details. So that is the real challenge. And I think a big part of that is testing, is getting things out to players to get their feedback. We've had 3 technical alphas, right? So presenting people something, being curious and humble. This is our thought on this. What do you think, player? This person who's played, many games of this type, getting that feedback, and then have the willingness to adapt, to pivot. All of that, right? A good team coming together with that curiosity and that humility, and then bringing things out to players, I think is what makes a game like this possible. And the challenge, right, is trying to emulate some of the things we see in history and in reality, but not like one for one, in a way that they're fun, and they also make sense.
Yeah, I don't know what Gabrielle was talking about. I thought it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. We were just so simple the whole way. No, I'm kidding. It was really hard. It's a really hard genre to crack. It's totally different than anything else out there. It's one of those things where everything you touch has ripple effects that touch everything else. You know, I'm used to working on a game like a first-person shooter where you'll build a level and it'll have that 30-second loop of perfect gameplay, throwing the grenade, shooting the guys, running in, doing the melee, to clean up, and that being repeated in different configurations with different interesting things that happen, and then having the ability to build out more levels and expand on those concepts. And a game like this, there's just so many moving parts, and anytime you change one thing, it changes everything else. It's like, oh yeah, we raised the price of corn. Okay, well now it looks like nobody, you know, this leader can't win anymore. Nefertiti is now the worst leader in the game because the price of corn went up, you know, five wealth or whatever. And so the amount of time and energy just digging into the details and making all those interconnected parts work together was a lot, and a huge amount of fun.
Well, speaking of fun, I do wonder how, because I mean, Ara is a completely new thing. So I feel like there's a lot of potential for people coming to this game that are completely new to the genre. So how did you approach onboarding those people who've never played a game like this before?
I think that we've had some conversations about how might you start the game if you've never played in the genre. And I think first and foremost, the difficulty levels, allowing the game to be easier or harder based on whether you're new to the game helps. Not starting too high of a difficulty. Of course, we have our tutorialization as well as supplemental videos that, you know, we're posting on YouTube and will continue to be held there. But this is where the genre is actually a strength to onboarding. Because if you're allowing yourself to start at a lower difficulty, right, not too hard, just trying to get into it, maybe an easier path to it, you kind of know what makes a nation work. And so your intuition, when paired with the tutorialization and your own vision for what a nation can be a good starting point, even if you haven't been too far into the genre. So I remember at one of our press events playing the game with someone who was really interested in replicating the things that they loved about being French. And so thinking about like, okay, I'm playing as Jeanne d'Arc, and oh, look, this region is named after the region where someone I know lives. I'm going to claim this region. Oh, we're getting wine, we're getting cheese, we are getting bread, like I talked about earlier. But legitimately that happened, being like, okay, I want to follow my intuition, my cultural identity, my experience as this type of person from this type of culture, or maybe like my own dreams of what we could be. And as you start, if you're following the tutorial and you're playing on one of the easier difficulty levels, that can be enough to carry you through learning the major gameplay concepts and also adding that element of fun. I think where it gets harder, of course, is when you're on the higher difficulty levels. Then you really have to understand all the gameplay mechanics. But if you take this stepwise function, you follow the story of history you'd like to tell and follow the tutorialization, that onboarding, as well as the slow introduction of gameplay concepts that we've done and like how we've approached it, then that way it's a little bit easier, even if you haven't been part of the genre before, to get an understanding of what the game is about.
Yeah, they didn't want to simplify the genre. There was never a desire from that. There was always a desire to make this as complex, as deep, as thoughtful as any great grand strategy game, right? With that level of depth, but to still recognize and understand that partnering with us, they were going to be reaching a large audience with like PC Game Pass and everything, and that they had to add more tools to sort of hopefully help people fall in love with that complexity, fall games of that depth that had previously never tried it or been intimidated by it. So there's lots of little touches too, like the nested tooltip system. Every tooltip in the game, you can keep your mouse and hover for a certain amount of time and then move your mouse in and highlight another term, then highlight a term within that. So it's like, okay, I need wool in order to make this. I'm going to highlight down, I need to get sheep. Okay, where can I find sheep? They're in the grasslands biome. and you kind of can do these sort of nested tooltips that give you all of the detailed information and kind of lead you how to make all those, again, those interconnections. Because a game like this is all about that web of connections and things that touch each other.
So this is coming out on the 24th, which is like, by the time this episode is out, it's like maybe 2 days away, I think. So it's like pretty soon. And it's coming to PC Game Pass. It's also going to be available on Steam. Correct?
Yep.
Yes,
Yes,
okay, great.
absolutely.
And are there any plans to bring this to console? Can you bring a game like this to console? Like, how does that work?
The team at Oxide was very focused on, and us at Xbox were as well, making sure that this was first and foremost for PC gamers. This is a love letter to PC gamers, to strategy gamers. And so all the attention, all of the love has been put to that. There may be, future plans for opportunities to move it, but we wouldn't want to do that without focusing first on creating a great experience for mouse and keyboard and for people who are playing in this genre and have fallen in love with this genre for years. And that's why we're coming to all the places where they play games. We're going to be at the Windows Store, we're going to be in Steam, we're going to be in PC Game Pass. There's multiplayer compatibility between those, and so in multiplayer, players who bought the game on Steam can play against players in Game Pass and can join each other and do up to 36 players in our big cloud-based multiplayer. That's what simultaneous turns is the other thing. That's kind of what that powers, is that really big set of players. Because I'm imagining Uncle Bob's house with all of the players taking turns, and there's 36 of them in a row. But
Lots of cousins.
Lots of cousins, so many cousins. But the thing about the places where PC gamers go is that we just wanted to bring it to them. We're trying to bring games again to all of the gamers around the planet. So that's where we're headed.
Cool.
Okay, so I've been dying to ask this. What's the craziest story, like player emerge story, you guys have seen in playtesting and alphas and stuff? Like, does this game have like the Gandhi nuke moment? Like, what have you guys seen?
I have a few favorites. Matt, I don't know if you do.
I got a couple, but yours. I want to hear yours.
Okay, first I'll say like things. So we do have this portion of our game called narrative events, which are these little ethical and strategic dilemmas that are meant to immerse you into being a leader, that are prompted by actually game state elements as well as player action, so responsive to things you've done as a player. One of my favorite things is that choices that you make in one of these events can have ripple effects from Act 1 to Act 2 to Act 3. So I won't spoil too much, but I think it's really interesting to see like how your choices might have a narrative impact at the very end. And the surprise that has. That's me trying to say like sneaky. But in terms of an actual thing I can share, very recently, both me and my coworker Satch were let's playing the game, and we came upon a conundrum where we were trying to gift pots to different leaders, and they really did not like our pots. And we were very surprised by this because we thought this was a very kind gesture. But we were playing in separate computers, separate games, different scenarios. He gave more pots, I gave less, but neither of our pot gifts were sufficient enough to like improve our relationships. And so we realized like maybe, what is it? Like maybe we really should have like shelled out for the jewels. So that was funny that we both realized like we should have given a better gift to these other nations.
A little fancier, maybe.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Otto von Bismarck, the conservationist. That was a really interesting playthrough that
He's famous for that, isn't he? That's kind of his thing.
Right, of course. It wasn't knighting Germany. It was making sure the animals were safe. They refused to grant wildlife. Wildlife would ever be cleared. They built like zoos and anything they could that would make the animals feel better, and tried to make natural areas, flower fields and grass. They tried to basically bump up all their quality of life stats to be like the maximum for the cities, and then just pay off anybody so that they wouldn't fight them. Just like, no, here, have all my stuff, have all the gold, have all the jewels. I don't need it. I just need sheep. And they would refuse to do anything with leather. They refused to do anything with meat, no cured meats, no leather, no butcher shop, nothing. And they built up this little German ecotopia.
Vegan utopia. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
I love it. That's great.
Do that now. Yeah. I think sometimes you'll see people we play, like who are playing the game, will try to like play the game and not use any of the leader traits, like as like the ultimate hard mode, because each of our leaders have unique bonuses that they give you. And so part of what makes the game a little bit easier to win on higher victory levels, difficulty levels, is by playing into those special bonuses. So that's been a really fun challenge, is like, do you choose to play as like this military minded leader and then not a single war, not a single one? So adding that element of challenge is something people in the office have been doing, and I'm like, really? Wow. So I'm excited to see more of our,
Genghis Khan.
Yeah, Genghis Khan, the peace lover,
as patron of the arts, building masterpieces.
Yeah.
That's the type of stuff that has me excited to see more of this game. So Matt, Gabriella, with that, thank you so much for talking to us. Good luck with the launch, and we'd like to talk again.
That'd be great. Yeah, it's great talking.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Big fans, so really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks. Time for one of our favorite sponsors, Incogni. I like talking about these guys when we get the chance, actually. So, Lucy, what's Incogni? Tell the users at home what Incogni is.
So basically, if you exist on the internet at some point, someone has got access to your data, whether it's an email address that you use to sign up for something that's been sold to data brokers, and they can be nefarious sometimes. So what Incogni does is you put in a bunch of your information, and instead of you personally going to each data broker and asking for them to remove your information, Incogni does all of that busy work for you. I was just saying before we recorded this ad, I can give you my live Incogni report because I just got it. They've sent 297 requests out on my behalf, which is time saving 169 hours and 30 minutes of my life that I get back because Incogni did all that busy work for me. And my data has been removed from 226 lists where
that's crazy.
Consented to have my data up there. So
I think I'm on like
is great.
I think I'm on like 70 at this point.
It's wild to see where my data has ended up.
It's really good to have, because when your stuff is floating around there from your phone number to your email address, you're getting more spam in your inbox, you're getting spam texts, spam calls. So this can definitely help with that.
I've actually noticed that as well. I've actually noticed since I've been started using it, I've been getting way less spam, way less like just the, what do you call it? The calls, blank calls, whatever you call it, and you just like pick it up and you just hear that, like you hear like a whoop. Do you guys hear this sound in your country? Yep. That weird like dripping water sound that tells you you've been connected to a call center, and then you hear all the background chatter and you know that it's a call center, and I'm just straight away slamming that button down, like hang up. But I get less of those calls now, thankfully. So it's been really good. I've been super impressed by it. Been using it for months now, and it is nice to get those sort of reports as well. So definitely recommend checking it out. If you would like to do so, you can head to incogni.com and you can use code FriendsPerSecond to score an exclusive 60% off. Take back your online space with Incogni. Big thanks to them for sponsoring the video. Alrighty. Let's talk about video games.
What you've been playing?
No. I have just been playing Space Marine.
Okay.
I really did not expect to be playing as much Space Marine as I actually ended up playing. I was like, okay, I'm going to punch out a review, play like the campaign. It can be 6 to 8 hours long. I thought it'd be a bit longer, but whatever.
It took me 10.
Fine. Okay, yeah, like it's in that ballpark of like 6 to 10, depending on how you take it and whatever. I've heard some people say 12. I'm like, I don't know how it takes you 12 hours, but okay, fair enough.
Hardcore gamers.
Not hardcore.
That's right.
Cash.
So, but then I'm like, okay, obviously I'll just, play a little bit of the co-op, get a feel for it, whatever else. That got its hooks into me so deep. It is wild. And then I was like, the PvP mode, that looks super dumb. I'm not going to play any of that. Ended up playing hours of the PvP mode just because it's fun. Like, did you actually spend much time playing the PvP, Jake?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. It's like so dumb. It's so broken and unbalanced and so simple. There's only 3 maps. It's just such a janky affair. But it's just fun, man. Like, it really is. Because the stakes are so low, you don't care about how sort of unpolished it is.
No.
You're just really focusing on the fact that it's a good time.
Yeah. Holding this little area, doing this, just killing other guys that look like you. Like, who cares?
Absolutely. And so I just... But the co-op PvE mode is really what did it for me.
Yeah.
Because the campaign experience is, I think, quite not quite's a strong word, but I think it's disappointing on multiple fronts, particularly like the lack of progression, lack of customization. Like, it really does feel quite samey all the way through. Like, even just the scenarios are really missing out of it, you know? But the PvE side just fixes all of that. It has really cool mission design where you need to do things with your team. Like, one person has to click some button and you need to stand somewhere else so it does a thing and whatever. And it's so much more intense and challenging. And the classes, it's sick, and they really allow you to like fulfill this really like rewarding identity.
I wish they put they figured out a way to put the classes into the campaign, because
100%,
playing the PvE,
man.
I'm like, whoa, wait, what the fuck? These are
it's
totally cool and different.
The campaign kind of does the whole game dirty, to be honest with you, because it makes it seem like it's actually a lot more one-dimensional than it actually is.
Yeah.
It's so simple and straightforward, the campaign, that you think, oh, that's all there is to it. But there's so much more depth to the weapons, to the abilities. There's also all this like customization, perk trees, and like weapon upgrades. All that sort of shit is just not in the campaign.
Yeah.
And it's such a waste, you know? So getting stuck into that, I think I've put more than 30 hours into the PvE co-op of this stuff, playing solo the whole time.
Hell yeah.
Just rolling through and just having an absolute blast, man. Like, it's so good. It's so simple. Well, actually, that's not quite true. I'll rephrase. It seems very simple on the surface, but it's all so well designed that all of its complexity is kind of masked, and it just feels like a very simple affair, you know? It's the same way that like Halo is simple. You know, you think it's simple, but to make it feel that good and play that well, it's extraordinarily complex. I think this is in that same sort of vein. You know what I mean? So yeah, dude, I love it. Are you still playing, or are you wrapped it? You moved on to other things?
I've had
now?
to move on, but I
Sure.
did sync a lot. It was the PvE mode that I was like, man, this is cool. I like the heavy class. I like just like
Yes,
like
totally.
really getting that wish fulfillment, that like power fantasy. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's just good.
I said in my review, it's a very surprising release because of how old school it all feels. The fact that you have a campaign plus a PvE co-op mode plus a PvP mode. Like, games don't do that anymore. And if they do launch a PvP mode, they're just going to stuff it full of like in-game spending, like an expensive cash shop that sells $40 skins or whatever. This doesn't have that. All the future content in this game is free. There's a season pass that just gives you cosmetics.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing is just... it feels like such a throwback. It really does.
Isn't
It's
it
a
amazing too? Like, I find it very interesting that has actually colored my perception. Like, I like the game more. The game feels more interesting and more for me because of that stuff, because of how it's structured, because of how it is as like a package.
Absolutely. And I think the fact that you want to talk about this game and share it, you want to encourage other people to buy it.
Yeah.
And I think so often we have to talk about games and we have to be like, Star Wars Outlaws, look, it's got some problems, it's got some shit, it's got it's got pre-ordered missions, fucking, it's just, it's a bit janky. Like, with this, you just kind of look at it and you're like, hell yeah, man, I want everyone to experience this. You become like a real ambassador for the game because of how well it's treating you. And I think I look at something like Diablo 4 as another example, right? Where Diablo 4, I thought, was a good game. Had its problems, of course. But it also had this cash shop that was like, you know, all of the best armors are hidden behind this cash shop, you know, or the battle pass. And, you know, that makes you really... Look, I believe Diablo 4 is a good game. I recommend it. But I don't recommend it with nearly the same fervor that I do Space Marine 2. Like, I'll go out of my way to grab you by the scruff of the neck and be like, bro, listen, we got to talk about Space Marine.
Yeah.
Whereas the Diablo, I'm like, look, take it or leave it. You know, it's this, you know, that's it. That's a really important thing that I think is lost. Look, I generally don't like talking this way because I don't like to make broad sweeping generalizations about the state of like modern video games and whatever else. I think each of them are very different in their construction. But I do think there are some observable trends, which is that when it comes to many AAA games, they don't, especially these ones that are doing like live service or multiplayer or whatever, they don't leave you feeling really satisfied with your purchase. They don't really they don't leave you feeling like you have to go out and tell people about this game and like, you know, recruit people to it. And I say that in large part, I'm thinking about Destiny half the time. You know what I mean? Where it's like, that's been my game that I've been playing for years. but I've just almost never been able to recommend because of exactly that, you know? Whereas if you can get to the point where you just piling value on and you're just treating your players right, there's a lot of good karma that comes from that. And the game's now sold, Space Marine sold through 2 million copies in its first couple of weeks. That's huge for a Warhammer game, right? And I think it's going to continue to sell very well in the long term because I think a lot of people are going to come to this and be very pleasantly surprised.
I'd really also want to learn the approach to how they made it in terms of how interesting it is. It's because I jumped back in and I started replaying the first Space Marine, how they just picked up where Relic left off and how good of a job they do making it feel like a continuation. Like, I don't know, in like, it's hard to explain, but I'm like, wow, like if you told me that like, yeah, it's the same studio and they're still around and it's modern technology and they're still at it, I would have believed you. I think that's really impressive.
I agree.
Because we've had games where a different studio picks up the sequel and it feels different, for better or worse. This is a really interesting case study.
They definitely have a lot of respect for the Warhammer source material, and I really respect that they were thorough. Well, look, obviously, I only have a cursory understanding of that universe.
Yeah, what's up with those skulls that like are they like their TVs, like their skulls walk like fly around and they
skulls
talk to everybody?
Bones are their money.
Yeah, they're just
Skulls are their TV.
Yes. But it was clear that Saber really respected the source material, and I think it's clear they also respected Relic's work because they really had just tried to recreate a lot of that, but also improve on it. You know, they weren't trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater there, and they were trying to provide that PvP mode and also the Horde mode, which comes later on, and a continuation of their story, that all that stuff. Like they, you know, I think they started at a great spot and they ended up at a great spot.
I really just brief story conversation. I think it's really funny that Dimitri and not spoiling anything, this is the beginning of the game, but like Dimitri and Titus is like, you know, penance, his punishment for his issues in the last game is just he gets to be even cooler. He gets to just have even sicker armor and be more of a fucking badass for a little while.
Yeah,
and he's like, I served my time in the Death Watch. It's like, yeah, you were just really awesome. Congratulations. I love it.
No, it is a very, very good game. It's definitely on my, you know, game of the year list for sure.
Spoiler alert. Me too.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to play it. I'm not a Warhammer person, but the way you two are talking
look,
about
the thing
it.
is, here's the thing. Don't expect it to be surprising. Like what you see is what you get.
Yes.
Don't be like, oh,
That's
you know.
yeah, but like I don't know, the execution.
Absolutely.
execution.
But if you're in the mood for just a crazy balls to the wall action game that is so intense and fully and just delivers you a lot of satisfaction and value, you know, and it just, I think anyone would be smart to pick this up. I really believe that.
Maybe that will be my post metaphor Dragon Age, like done with 100-hour RPGs.
Yeah,
like, I just
no
need
thinking.
something.
No thinking, only shooting.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So that's it. That's all I've been playing recently, actually, because it's just kind of taken up all my time.
I was gonna say I'll quickly pop in because everything I'm playing is embargoed, but but 'tis the season. Bless you, Jellybean, who just sneezed all over my hand. I did get a MetaQuest 3 headset.
Oh, nice.
Nice. They're a good device, aren't they?
They are a good device. So yeah, thank you to Meta because I went to. We didn't talk about this, but we did play the Batman game at Gamescom, and so.
Please tell me everything about it.
I was gonna say not playing that just yet, but I did play the demo. It was so my problem is I get motion sick.
Yeah.
And unfortunately I did get very motion sick with Batman.
It's so funny.
Because you did not.
Because I get motion sick as well, but I did not get motion sick with Batman.
So I wonder...
So I'm not sure. You may be just more sensitive to it than I am.
Yeah.
But I thought I was really sensitive, so...
That's... Yeah, and so...
But you get motion sick on, like, first-person shooters as well and shit. So, like, I think you actually are more sensitive. Yeah.
Sometimes. I know someone who couldn't play The Last of Us. Like, she retched her way through The Last of Us. So I'm just
That's
like...
a lot.
But I don't have any
third-person
issues
game,
in cars. No issues in moving vehicles. Like, I don't know. I think it has something to do with frame rates, honestly. And I should have spent more time, like... Jelly, I love you. You're going to have to go down.
cat on screen
Too-
for people
like,
listening.
Too
Wait,
involved.
Did you say you have no problems when you're in a car in VR or in real life?
Oh no, in real life.
Have you ever done VR racing
VR
game?
in a car?
It's so funny in a racing game in VR, and you like if you just stick your head out of the car, the game like freaks out. Anyway.
I have actually. I think I played. Oh, I can't remember what it was. It was some game at Summer Game Fest a couple years ago. But the problem with me getting so motion sick is because Batman is really cool. Like I did fully think like the way that they've dealt with the motion stuff and like you're putting your hands to your side and you're bringing out his cape, or you're in the middle of a fight and you're throwing a batarang and you're countering people.
Are you pulling stuff off your belt?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
You are.
And-
You're like pulling off. Like you're there's like things here, and here,
Yeah.
and you grab them, and that's how you throw a batarang, and this is how you throw a smoke bomb or whatever.
And
but
you
the
can
cape
swish,
animation,
you can swish the cape.
yeah, the cape animation, by the way, is literally like you put your hands by your side, and when you want to glide, you do this. You
Yeah.
like lift your arms out on the side.
But you can stun them mid combat with the cape. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Can
and
you
there's
do
also-
the thing? Can you do the arc? Can you do the cape stun and then punch
Yeah.
the shit out of them really
Yeah.
fast?
yeah.
Yes.
And so that's
No,
the thing
dude,
where it's
that's
like
cool.
I
For
think
real.
in combat it really shines because again I'm gonna sound I don't know. I felt like Batman a little bit.
Uh-oh.
I didn't feel
I
like
mean,
She
they
said
did it
it.
with the Iron Man game.
IGN are gonna want their check.
I really like the Iron Man VR game. I like
Yeah.
they nailed that feel
Yeah.
more than anything. So I'm totally confident they can do it with Batman.
but it's also because it's the bones of what Rocksteady like in terms of sound effects, in terms of little gameplay things like pulling the vent off and crawling through it or using detective mode or something. It's like I wonder if also because I'm getting like activated by those sound effects in a way where it's like,
Sure.
oh, I'm fully into this world that I already know so well.
And there was also a whole like stealth section where you were like perched above.
Yeah, there's predator rooms.
You were kind of, yeah, like you were perched above on like the gargoyles, and had to like grab the guys underneath you and pull them up with your like with the it was all that stuff, all the stuff that you did in Arkham. It's incredible how much it was all there, So I walked away from it very impressed by how good it was. Like, because I played a few other VR games, which at Gamescom, some of which I didn't like, some of which I was like okay with, but this is the one that I was like, nope, they cracked it 100%. This is surprisingly excellent. Was super positive on it, to be honest. I really had a great time.
Narratively, is there a lot of like? Does it continue the Arkham thing of like? I need to cross-reference the DNA in order to piece together this crime scene. Like, is he
Yes.
talking to himself
Yes.
a lot? Because I actually
Yeah.
like that.
because
Yes, he does do that.
It's Roger Craig Smith.
I love him.
So it is after Arkham Origins, between Origins and Asylum. So still a
Yes,
relatively
it is.
newish Batman. I didn't get to a point where I saw like other characters, but I did see in the trailer and like the things that they showed was like Harvey Dent's in it, and so is Harley Quinn, but not as we know them obviously from Arkham Asylum.
It's the Lady
onwards.
Gaga version.
Is that out yet, by the way?
No,
Not
and apparently
yet.
it's
Not yet.
bad.
I've heard it's bad.
Or it's
I-
really.
Bad.
I've heard it's really bad or really good.
Okay, good.
Interesting.
I
Interesting.
want to go. I'm excited. But no, I really enjoyed it. And like, yeah, so I got a MetaQuest headset from Meta. They sent one over. And I would love to tell you that I have finally been experimenting with like Asgard's Wrath and Supernatural. No, I've
Sure.
just been playing Beat Saber.
Beat Saber. Yep. Hey,
Dude, that's
nothing
all
wrong
you
with
need,
that.
to be honest with you.
Yep.
When you get that and you get a VR headset, there's nothing else, man.
But
It
the
takes
thing is,
over.
So one of the issues I always used to have with my MetaQuest 2 is that it felt heavy. Like I have a long neck and a small head. It's okay, we're friends here. I can say it. I feel safe saying it to you guys. Long neck, small head. Can't wear a VR headset for very long because it's too heavy on my delicate little bird
Sure.
bones.
My bones.
My bones. So I actually really enjoy the fact that this one is much lighter. Also, the setup was wild. Like just putting the QR code up on my phone and then holding it and the headset scanning it and connecting me to everything, and like that was
It is, and just the room scan is really
Yeah.
wild as
Yeah.
well. When you do that, when you do the first time you do like augmented reality game. Did you do that one where you like to have to shoot the aliens around your room while they're like busting apart your room?
Oh, dude, I don't think you realize how quickly I went into Beat Saber.
Oh, okay, right. No, but honestly, you should do
Skip.
that experience.
I will.
It comes preloaded on the headset.
Yeah.
Very impressive, and it really does make you feel like you could do some cool stuff with this tech.
It's amazing how
But
far
I-
the setup sequence has come, because like I had
absolutely.
the original HTC Vive. I had like the first
Oh, yeah.
dev kit, well, like setting up sensors and shit. Like we've come so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
all I've been doing. I think still a little bit of Fields of Mystery here and there, but there's a bunch of games I'm excited to talk about next episode. Little tease.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I'm playing some stuff in the background on like under NDA or whatever. So yeah.
Jake, you've been
Yeah.
playing games. Save us.
I've been busy.
Yeah,
I've
tell
been real
us.
busy. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, or DRDR, Doctor.
Doctor.
This is it's the same game, but they've tweaked it a little bit. They've made it a little bit easier in spots. Like there are some quality of life improvements to it, but it's still like an awkward, weird game. Like it still keeps that jankiness, which is good. And visually, it's totally overhauled. Where it works for me is the character models and the details of the mall. The mall just feels like a more well-realized location. It's still the same, it's still recognizable. You can still get used to it, memorize the paths, but it just looks way better. Graphically, though, I just don't think it looks that good. Low-res textures, just like a muddy, kind of blurry, desaturated look to a lot of it. The original game, like when you do side-by-sides, like the original game does not look that good, but like it's got a little bit of zest to it. It's got a little bit of something to it that this game, I think, lacks at certain points of the day, like the dynamic lighting. Like the game really only looks good in like broad daylight. Any other time of the day, it does not look very good at all. So I found that kind of distracting and kind of disappointing. Otherwise, it's a cool way to experience Dead Rising. There's a lot of little things if you're like a big fan, you can nitpick. A lot of it's already been covered in like preview sessions of the game. But I think if you're a new fan, you might have a lot of fun. It's cool. I also just really, this remake remaster aside, I just really like that original Dead Rising. I think they've never really gotten they peaked with the first one, in my opinion. You can't replicate that. There was something so weird, strange, interesting about it. The way it's structured around the 72-hour time limit, it just kind of came out of nowhere and felt like this very cool, unique thing. And I think it still is. Even with my nitpicks and like little changes and weird things, like how it's a little easier, kind of like, you level up a little quicker. Some things are just too easy, like escorting survivors. Even still, the game just is just a unique one. So I'm glad that there's a fun new way to play it. They cut some things, they changed some things, they did some weird choices, but yeah, it's all right. It's not like an open and shut thing like Dead Space or something like that. It's a little weirder. The other thing I played, my most anticipated of the year, Frostpunk 2. So
okay.
I'm still diving into it. Like I'm still a day, when we're recording this, I'm still like a day away from first impressions on Game Ranks. And then I want to do like a deeper thing. But first impressions is like, I didn't really know what it was going to be going in, but it is very different. It's very different from the original.
I've never played the original. The only thing I know about the original is like child labor in the game.
Hell yeah.
The game. I don't know.
Yes.
Kurt was
Not
talking
in the
about
development cycle.
Not on the development cycle.
It's
No.
made by children.
Made by children. No. What kind of what is it?
So the first one is kind of a city builder, but less about building the city and more about survival and making decisions and managing those resources to keep this Snowpiercer city, essentially. Keep it warm, keep it heated, keep it going. The new
Keep the
one,
kids out of the mines.
keep the kids out. Those fuckers go right in. You got to do what you got to do. We got to heat this city. Kids, get in there, get to work.
This city.
The second game is more 4X. It's more bigger map, plotting out where resources are, making your way to those resources, establishing districts, taking advantage of those resources, sending out more scouts deeper into the Frostland, then building separate auxiliary cities and sending resources and people and fuel back and forth and establishing trade routes and trade lines. So it's a lot more complicated. And it's just very different. I'm still like,
do you like it more than the first one?
So the first one was very intimate. The first one was very intimate and like really oppressive, where this one just feels a lot more
like a management game.
A lot more management, a lot more gameplay, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just a lot more clicking on things, moving things around. But what I like is that, so in the original game, the city was built around a furnace. The furnace heated the city. You managed that furnace. The city would grow almost in a circular way outside of that. And it was very limited in how you would build out. Now there's like way more of a tile system, and you're like cutting through the snow and stuff. And what I like is that this game does a really good job. It's a weird thing to hit on with like city builder 4X, like management type of games when you're on land. In this one, the way you grow out and expand, you actually feel like you are like a scar upon the earth. Like you are like kind of really like
a cancer spreading across the earth.
Yeah. And I like that, especially because like you're managing multiple resources now. It's not just digging for coal. Now oil comes into play, and it's about like how you pump that out of the ground, how you establish those facilities, where are the veins for the oil. And I like zooming out now and seeing the center of my city, and then it's like tentacles, like tendrils just going out and kind of corrupting and taking up more of this inhospitable land. I don't know. It's just a really, really cool feeling.
But is it sort of like your presence is inherently bad on the landscape, and that's kind of like a moral it's moral dimension to the game, or is it just like that's how you feel?
That's how I feel.
Visually,
it's like a visual.
Right.
It's a visual. It's very satisfying. It's very like satisfying I like city builders because I like zooming out and going, wow, look what I have done. And in this one, it's just got a very different, unique feel to it. The moral decisions and all that stuff comes from like a huge faction system now. So now there are multiple. So essentially in this, it's like a little further ahead. Humanity can manage with the cold a little bit. It's still brutal, but it's about how you move forward from that. It's not just about scraping by and surviving. It's like, what else do we do? So societies are bigger. You start off with a much bigger society, and you have these factions, and there's a whole political system. So like there is a council with all these factions, and every couple of turns, you know, like there's like a recess period, and then you have a meeting with this council, and you vote for different things to help the city. Like this is where you would essentially choose to like put the children's in the mines or put them in school for different resource benefits and stuff. But because of all these factions, there's like a faction affinity system. And with that, it's like there's votes, and you can kind of see which way which factions are feeling on votes. And there's kind of like a in between where you're not sure. So you essentially need to go around like and like whip up votes, and you can make promises to certain factions to get votes in the short term, but then you have to fulfill their promises. So where the first game really did a good job of showing how being a leader sucks, and like no matter what a decision you make is always going to screw up something else. You can't make everybody happy. Here, it's almost like the politician aspect, where it's like, man, you have to do so much deal making and handshaking and like fucking over these people and appeasing these people, and it's just a total mess. I haven't gotten deep into the nuances of that system yet, but I am working my way through the essentially like the campaign mode that introduces you to all the mechanics, and I'm into it.
Is it? Because I actually have booted this up,
yeah,
and I played the prologue, and I really loved it, and then I just had to stop just as I got to the main map. Yeah. So is the main map, is the whole game played out on that one map, and the story unfolds across that one, or is it a case of like I complete that map and then I enter a new chapter with a new map again, or is
after the prologue you enter a completely new situation?
Yes, of course. But my point is that after that, though, the rest of the story as it plays out, because I noticed there are other chapters on that screen at the front. Do I get a new map every new chapter, or am I always on that second map for the rest of the game, but the story unfolds across that map?
So I'm not completely through yet,
Okay.
but
okay.
I'm significantly through and I'm still on that map. But what
First
you
map,
do
okay,
now
right.
is that you zoom out and you have the overall Frostlands, and it's kind of almost like a Game of Thronesy type of like the Game of Thrones intro, like that type of map.
Yeah.
And at first you're just establishing outposts and like it's just click on that thing and resources will come, or send out scouts and maybe they'll die but you'll get a thing. Then after a while you start establishing actual second cities, so then in real time you're jumping back and forth between essentially one huge chunk of a map, which is like the main playable one, and then whole complete other ones. And different resources, like I essentially have like one that's just like, you're my shitty little oil town. Your kids are working in the mines here and you're sending oil back to the main, essentially my capital city. So it's really interesting to manage multiple cities at once, because it all runs. If you have, if you're pressing play and a city is running in real time and you're over here, your other city is still going on. Thankfully, the game does seem like it can keep up when you're flip-flopping and clicking real quick and bouncing between these cities. Like I haven't had the game collapse on me. It's pretty technically impressive. It's a lot. I know I just like said a lot. And the fact that I'm still only, I think there's going to be like a good amount of replay value with it. That's just like, I just feel like, I can definitely sink my teeth into this more.
Have you failed? Because at the start of the game, they're like, failure is a part of the experience. Like, have you had to roll back?
I haven't yet.
Made some
no.
Okay, right. Okay.
But it is getting very dicey, and I'm always kind of like at the skin of my teeth. So I didn't choose the lowest difficulty. They say if you didn't play, they said if you didn't play Frostpunk 1, choose the lowest difficulty. So I chose like the 1 up, and it's challenging, but I'm getting through it.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, right. I'm really interested in it. As I said, I booted it up. I don't have time to review it, sadly, because I'm working on some other things right now. But I do plan to circle back to it, because I never played the first one either. But everyone speaks about it so highly, and so I've always wanted to do so. So yeah, it's very much on the list.
It's very much a different flavor, but not in a bad way, because I looked at the first Frostpunk and I'm like, what do you just do that again with a sequel? So they didn't. They did something totally different.
That's cool.
But it's I respect that. So I can't wait to play it more.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Does it work on Steam Deck?
I have not tested that.
Imagine it
but
does not.
I don't think so.
Does the first one does? Does the first one?
The first one's on consoles. The controls are all right.
maybe.
So I assume maybe. I don't know.
I've got a 4090 machine and like a top end CPU.
Oh, no.
And it's still pushing it.
Yeah.
So Steam Deck, I reckon, is a hard no. That's a guess, but I reckon it's a hard no.
That's fine. Well, that's what we've been playing. Should we talk about stuff that's not video games? Ralph, you said you haven't really been doing much other than working.
I haven't. I mean, like, as I said, I've been working. I've been getting ready for a trip to Tokyo next week for Tokyo Game Show. So I'll definitely have some show and tell to talk about after that.
Oh, yeah.
I have been playing tennis, which is great.
Which is
very funny, very funny telling people, like grown-ass people at tennis, what I do for a living.
I didn't even think of that.
They find it very funny, and I understand why. It's perfectly understandable. But I did speak to them. Some of them have kids, and they're like, "Yeah, our kids play Genshin Impact and shit." I'm like, "That's nice, that's cool." And they're like, "Yeah, my son plays Rainbow Six Siege," and I'm like,
"There we
hardcore
go,
hardcore gamer." That's right. He knows what he's talking about.
Search history.
He plays the good stuff. I don't know. Other than that, I haven't even watched any like movies lately. Television. I tell you, the only thing I've ingested otherwise is like Captain America comic book series that's running right now.
Oh,
it's
really?
not
New
good.
one.
It's not good, sadly.
Yeah,
unfortunately. The first like six it's just really good. Because it was like had this flashback stuff, like as Steve is a boy and as like Nazis in the street kind of thing, and like in New York and whatever, and it was really interesting. And then it just kind of got really weird after that, and kind of really disappointing. So don't recommend it, unfortunately. But yeah, that's all I got.
Well, Jake, what's Rebel Ridge?
Yeah, this is a quickie. This is a movie that was on my radar. A trailer came out a couple months ago. Some good filmmakers were involved with it, so I was curious. It's called Rebel Ridge. It dropped on Netflix, and essentially it's a new version of Rambo: First Blood.
I've seen this
Yeah.
guy's face because I've
Wait,
seen all
who's
over
in it?
Twitter, define locked in, and there's this guy's
So
face.
the lead
Oh,
guy
the
is
locked in guy.
the lead guy
Yeah,
is
the locked
the
in
actor
guy.
is Aaron Pierre. I have it up on my screen.
Okay.
Unbelievable. I love when it's like, I love watching a movie. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Of course he's British, so he's good at acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have told me in the movie like, no, that's an American guy. I would have been like, yeah, I know. It takes one to know one. But so it's essentially, so when I say Rambo: First Blood, people just think Rambo is like killing, but First Blood was like the thoughtful movie. It actually had something to say, and this is like that. It's the same thing. It's a former Marine comes to a small town, deals with essentially a corrupt police precinct, and the movie gets a little lost in the middle in terms of like how deep that intrigue goes and that mystery, but it's just like a good solid thriller, and it's like deep in like the South, like Louisiana, so it's like this very, very small town, corrupt precinct fucking with this guy, and like he gets pushed to his limits, and it's like it's clear he's a badass and he can do like Jason Statham takedown stuff, but the movie is very restrained on like when it does that. Don Johnson is the police chief, Don Johnson from Miami Vice. He's really good. It's a good time. It's not like the greatest thing in the world, but it's definitely the best like Netflix thing I've seen in a long time, like Netflix movie.
I didn't realize this. So this is the director and some of the producers from behind Green Room.
Yeah, that's
Which-
why I was like, oh
Slapped.
yeah, what is this?
That
Yeah.
movie was so good.
Sure.
Maybe I'll put this on for my flight next week.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
I'm
mine.
excited.
Luce, what do you got? What do you got,
Yeah,
Luce?
what do you
Tell us.
got?
You've been
Hit us.
hyping up this. You've been
No,
hyping up this
no,
show
not
and tell
hyping
for a
it.
while.
It's just like I really
have. It's
enjoyed
been
it, and I
hyped.
want more people to watch it.
All right. Go
First of
on.
all, Slow Horses on Apple TV.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. I started watching it because season 4 dropped, and I hadn't even heard of the show before. It's
I have a
Reject
question.
MI5. Yeah.
Why does Gary Oldman look so gross in that show?
Yeah. It was
Why'd they
Because
do that?
he's the grizzled head of the Slough house, but he actually loves everyone who he looks after, Jake, and anyway.
Okay.
We're not here to talk about Slow Horses. I want
No.
to talk to you about Set, which
Okay.
is a documentary about competitive table setting.
Oh
Jesus
my
Christ.
god, this is the most Lucy ass shit I've ever heard in my fucking life. Holy hell. Oh my god. Oh my god, you have outdone yourself with this, Lucy. Come on.
Is this Geordie culture? Is this
No,
what
this
you...
is American.
Oh,
This is
no.
your people.
God.
This is a
No, I
bunch.
guarantee you this started out as an obscure British TV show that you've never heard of. It got
This is
picked
a
up in
remake.
America and then adapted, okay?
The Great British Table Setting. No,
Yes.
so this is a bunch of mostly middle-aged women, affluent women who live kind of Orange County, LA. Every year they take part in the county fair where they have to set a table, and the table is always themed. There is one guy in this like collection of contestants that they get. It's kind of like best in show competition thing where
Okay.
I think,
they
yeah.
all know who each other are, who each other is.
yeah.
They all hate each other.
Gossip, of course.
And they all just have like too much money and too much time on their hands because they just set tables. But
What kind
like,
of themed tables do they do? Like, are we talking
Okay.
like Goosebumps and Spider-Man?
No. So this year they all picked the same theme, which was international travel,
Okay.
and two
Okay.
of them both picked Africa,
Okay.
and one woman decided to put taxidermied animals on her table, and this caused
Hell yeah.
so much
Chief
drama.
Irons
It was
over
weird.
here.
There was this one woman as well who like didn't know how to come up with an idea, so she went to a flotation tank and she basically has an out of body experience and comes up with her table.
Oh my god.
I mean, my favorite bit is when they cut to like the husbands and children because they're just like, yeah, there's this one woman who's such a perfectionist and she's won best in show because they want best in show. They don't want first place, they want best in show. And she's won best in show a bunch of times. So she has those tables in her house. Like there is a whole room in her house where she just has her tables.
Holy shit.
It's great. Like I had such a good time with it. I saw a couple clips on TikTok and I was like, there's no way. It's a really well-made documentary. My favorite thing is that they kind of do the Control full screen title of where you are.
Oh,
but it's
right.
all like,
That's actually cool.
But it's in like a millennial pink and it says like Orange County, Los Angeles.
Okay.
That is actually cool.
It's really good. I rented it from, I think you can only rent it. I rented it from YouTube. But it's similar in vibes to if there was a Netflix show called We Are the Champions, which is all about obscure competitions around the world. So there's this one in the UK where they roll a wheel of cheese down a hill and people throw themselves down the hill to get a wheel of cheese. It's basically like, that series it's also narrated by Rainn Wilson. I think it's very good. It's a celebration of like the human spirit and competition and stuff. And because tablescaping that's what some of them call it, is such a weird thing. It did remind me of that show quite a bit because, you know, obviously it's something that's not really within the realm of what we know about in terms of competitions. But I had a great time with it. I watched it the other day. It's a fun time.
You know, it's like easy to make jokes, but I'm glad people have a thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And like,
I'm just guy with job.
That's right. We're just casual table setters. They're the hardcore table setters. You know what I mean? And so it's nice that they exist.
But that's the thing now. Every time I lay a table, I'm going to be like, this wouldn't
do so
even
much
get
better.
an honorable mention. Because there's really strict rules about how far across, like how the inches things have to be from each other, and it's the whole thing. Anyway,
is there like a maverick? Like, is there like a badass who kind of like pushes the boundaries? The innovator.
Like the Jackson Pollock of table setting.
Table setting.
Just throwing forks onto the table.
Just drunk driving. Sorry,
no, everyone has to follow the rules, and as well, they don't know who the judges are, which is great.
Okay.
And the judges are really strict. Anyway, it's a fun documentary. I wanted to talk about it.
Thank you.
Using my platform for good to talk
Yeah,
about
that's
a
right.
table
Absolutely.
documentary. Well, that about does it for another episode of the Friends Per Second podcast. Thank you everyone for watching, listening. If you would like to do so, you can go rate us over on your podcast platform of choice. We really appreciate it.
We'd love that.
We would love that.
Yeah,
we
I look at
have-
them. I check them. They're good. Thank you.
They're nice.
Appreciate it.
They're pleasant.
Mostly.
We do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mostly. Better hit rate than our general comment section. Let's put it that way.
That's
I
that's
don't know.
YouTube.
I think the comment section's pretty nice. We've been on the
Our comment section is pretty good.
Our
that's
comment
it.
section is. Yeah.
So the reviews though is a different story.
I was gonna say, like Jordan, who was on last episode, was like, "Wow, your comment section is actually really nice," but he said it in a very Scottish accent. It was tough to.
Of course, hard to understand.
And yeah, we have a Substack. So every episode, we put together a list of everything we talked about, links to things that we reference. And so if you want to sign up for that, it is friendspersecond.substack.com. It's a fun time. I really enjoy putting that together.
It's the best. I love reading it. You do
It's
a
nice,
really good
yeah.
job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's just, I don't know, something to tickle the brain put together. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Jake, what do we say?
Tie your shoes and go to bed. Did I say it too? That was way too direct.
That was
gotta,
really, yeah.
Sorry.
I liked it.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Oof.
Yeah.
We'll get it next time.
We'll get it next time.